To call this meeting.
All right, recording has started.
That's double S.
Yep.
Last year.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission to order tonight, October 28th at 7:05 p.m. The regular meeting, excuse me. And I'll start with some introductions, starting on Zoom. Commission member Kevin, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yep. Kevin Seaman, Commissioner,
And your role tonight?
Acting Commissioner. I
You are our
Vice
secretary.
Chair. Wait, I am acting as.
You're secretary, Kevin, remember?
I did not remember. But
You
okay.
are secretary tonight, sir. And every night.
No boy. Well, good, because I'll pull up Microsoft Word and I am secretary tonight.
Kevin, moving right along.
So, my apologies.
No worries.
Nico Jordan, Vice Chair.
Okay, Danielle Monroe, chair,
Dave McCollum, land use coordinator in the Wetlands agent.
and also on Zoom.
Amanda Martinez, recording secretary.
Thank you very much. All right, we have no one else waiting for entrance. Is that right, Amanda?
I'm not seeing anyone though.
Okay. Just making sure we don't have any commission members joining late. Okay. Dave, are there any amendments to the agenda or unlisted items that need to be added tonight?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. There is one item that I would request the commission add under staff report, 7 Rockwell Road. The matter that has been previously discussed for that property for the Mark Bjorken appeal.
Okay, so I would entertain, we need a motion, yes. I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda tonight to include an update on 7 Rockwell.
Second.
All in favor, Kevin?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. So we will amend the agenda to include 7 Rockwell under staff report. Thank you. Any other items?
None at this time, Madam Chair. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. All right. Any other modifications that anyone wants to offer tonight to the agenda, Kevin, Nico?
Not at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, let's go ahead and begin. We're going to start with old business, 107 Plum Trees Road, excavation of soil material from a water course.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I have been so consumed with my other duties that I have not followed up with the property owner, Audrey Favreau. I do intend, as I said at the last meeting, to have an update for the commission's next meeting, which will be held on the Monday before Thanksgiving, November 25th.
All right, thank you
Okay,
very
and I am
much.
holding myself to that.
Thank you, Dave, for all you do. We
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, good. All right. Let's see, I want to check our, okay, we do have Mr. Carter and Mr. Anders here.
Okay.
And, okay. So then we're moving along to the public hearing portion of our meeting tonight. Kevin? Yes, I'm sorry, this is number 9, Putnam Park Road, fill a 2x2 area of a
Mhm.
possible poorly drained soils at location of an old above ground pool. Yes?
That's correct.
Okay. Kevin, this is where we would like you to read something into the record since we are having a public hearing. Dave is going to pull it up on the screen for you.
Okay. Excellent. I will do
Thanks.
so.
And of course, I can't get it on my screen.
Your
There we
email.
go.
Sorry.
If it's saved on the Google Drive, you can always send it to me. Oh, there we go. Okay.
And I will zoom in so you can read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Legal notice to appear in the Danbury Times, October 15th, 2024, and October 22nd, 2024. The Bethel Inland Wetlands Commission will hold a public hearing on October 28th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in Meeting Room D of the Bethel Municipal Center and via Zoom web-based video conferencing to consider the following. Stephen Trinkus, P., number 9 Putnam Park Road, regulated activities, activity within wetlands. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard and or submit written comments. Comments may also be sent via regular mail and emailed to landuse@bethel-ct.gov. Hard copies of application materials are available for review in the Bethel Land Use Department and via hyperlink at the town website, www.bethel-ct.gov. Dated this 14th of October at Bethel, Connecticut, Danielle Monroe, Inland Wetlands Commissioner Chair.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
You're welcome.
So I do want to let the commission members know that Attorney Andrus is here and Mr. Carter, our first selectman, is also in attendance. So when we get to the portion where we'll be participating, if you have any questions and would like to direct them in that way, please feel free to do so. And I think we will open tonight. Looks like Mr. McManus, you are representing the applicant.
I am.
Mr. Trinkus is representing the applicant. Mr. Trinkus, would you like to present tonight?
Could you pull up the plan?
Yes, you're the wetlands plan or
Yeah, this is
the?
wetlands plan,
Okay.
the one I submitted. Steve Trinks, for the record, professional engineer from Southbury, representing the property owner, Tim Draper, on this application. So this was, there is a depression on this site where an above ground pool had been set partially in the ground years and years ago. The pool was removed, but the hole remains. The hole is into the hard pan soils which exist in this area. During the application a year ago for an 8-30G, there was a question whether it was a wetland area here or not, and I will let Mr. McManus speak to, his professional opinion as soil scientist. But this application is solely to fill in basically a 4 square foot area of possibly poorly drained soils and the adjacent upland soils that are surrounding it, and fill in the hole, basically, just fill in the hole. During the other application that was in front of planning and zoning, at one point, the consultant engineer, Todd Ritchie, had gone out there and, water had ponded in because we had a bunch of rain, but it ponded because the hard pan soils don't infiltrate the water. So it's like a bathtub. So, to prevent any possible, safety issues with kids from the neighborhood, even though you're not supposed to trespass as a kid, having been a 10 or 12-year-old kid, we wandered pretty much all over the place. So to fill this in would potentially, prevent, if there is water in it, from, anybody falling in it. So that's the application. There is an erosion control measure down gradient of it. And I'll let Jim, speak to the wetlands, and then I'll have a few more comments.
Thank you, Mr. Trinkus.
Good evening, Jim McManus, certified professional soil scientist, JMM Wetland Consulting Services, offices in Newtown. I visited the site to review if any wetlands are on the site. Technically, I wrote a letter back in June that indicated that there weren't any wetlands. And the reason I did that is because the area that is shown on the plan, it says 2 by 2 possible poorly drained. There's actually an area that is poorly drained. State statute does not limit the size of wetlands. If you have a poorly drained soil, you have a poorly drained soil, which in the state of Connecticut would be a regulated soil. However, it's common mapping practices that something of that size, that small, if you can jump over it, if most folks, well, I know you two were at this site walk, I easily straddled the area without any effort at all. Those are typically ignored, if you will, and they become inclusions, poorly drained inclusion in an otherwise upland mapping unit. And that was the premise of my letter. And I wrote after that, I wrote an email indicating exactly that. And so that we still stand by the fact that there's no wetlands on the site. I mean, it's too small to map, in my opinion. And it's kind of an inclusion in an upland mapping unit. So that's how we stand on it.
Steve Trinkus, again, for the record. It's also important to point out that if this hole didn't exist, we wouldn't be here tonight. It's only because this was an excavated hole, 30, 40 years ago. When we dig test pits for septic systems, we always backfill test pits, but a lot of engineers years ago never backfilled the test pits. And when you dug test pits in hard pan, over time, the water would bleed in at the hard pan layer, and you have a hole with water in it. And that's basically what happened here. And if the water sits there long enough over years, you can get, conditions that, begin to change the soil, from an upland to a poorly drained soil, but it takes years of saturation to do so. So that's the only, application here. There is no proposed development proposal, nothing to do with the potential wetlands. It's off-site. It's simply to fill in, the 4 square feet of poorly drained soils and the adjacent, upland area. So we have a level area and not a hole. It's about 33 yards of, what we're going to do, select fill in that area, and leave it at that. So that's all we're doing. I mean, we did get comments from David. I think my professional opinion, they're really a little over the top for what the activity is here. But again, it's a simple application. There's no development associated with this, no site plan, no new house. It's just filling in this hole. That's it.
I'm sorry, I was confused by that, Mr. Trinkus.
No,
Are you
it's just-
saying there's no new housing
There's
going
there's
on
no
this site?
there's no proposal to do anything at this time except fill in this hole.
I
If
see, because
if-
that's the planning and zoning.
Yeah, if a new application comes in and if for whatever reason we may have, regulated activity from an off-site wetland, we'll be back in front of you. But at this time, nothing is proposed except to fill in the hole and make it level. That's all.
Dave, I have a procedural question for you.
Sure.
So I understand what Mr. Trinkus was just stating. We know that there was an application in front of P and Z to build structures on this site that would be within the upland review area of this disputed 2x2 area. Are we to disregard that building?
So as Attorney Andrus stated for the record, when the commission accepted this application, this application was brought to pursuant to the applicant receiving a resolution of denial for an application that they have brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission. One of the items that's mentioned in that resolution of denial addresses or it includes the area of poorly drained soils, the wetlands that are on the subject property, as well as the off-site wetlands and the off-site intermittent water course that is located at 123 and 125 Milwaukee Avenue. I don't have the language of the resolution of denial in front of me, and I don't have the recall for that verbiage offhand. But that's the summary for why this application has been brought before you. Those are the reasons that were stated in the resolution of denial. The applicant is bringing an application for filling the area of poorly drained soils, the regulated the wetlands area on the property.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to also point out, Steve Trinkus, again, for the record, that what's currently in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission under 8-30G, when you have a denial, the applicant may come in with a modified plan to get input from the commission. It's a very loose concept plan. It is not a detailed site plan. And if they don't like the layout, then it goes away and Mr. Draper's appeal of the Planning and Zoning decision continues, through the legal channels. So there's no site plan formally submitted to planning at this point. So again, this is just to fill in this hole. That's it. And like I said, if the offsite wetlands, which is actually 2 properties to the east, based on a GPS manipulation by SLR showing the flags relative to the property lines, even if that was a surveyed location, we will not have any activities within that 100-foot upland review. It barely comes on to this site, and more so in the lower corner of the map, not up where this pocket is. So the southern southeast corner of it. It's about 20 feet, kind of an arc, coming into that corner. The original site plan that Planning and Zoning denied, there was a stormwater management system in that area, which would have been within the 100-foot. If the commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, approves a modified concept plan, the stormwater management system will actually move directly north away from the upland review area from that offsite wetlands. So.
Thank you. Do you have, Mr. McManus, any soil reports or anything from P&Z that you want us to incorporate into the record that isn't already there?
No.
Mr. Trinkus?
No, this is, quite honestly, this is probably the simplest application I've had in over 40 years of practice.
All right, I believe that you would like to offer some comments before we move to discussion.
I would, Madam Chair, thank you, and I will try to keep them brief. The wetlands application review tool that was generously provided to me from Ed Pawlak of Connecticut Ecosystems LLC back in late of 2018. That is the standard review tool that I use whenever the commission accepts an application for a public hearing, regardless of whether there's significant impact, regardless of if it's based on public interest, whatever the reason. If it is a public hearing, that is the review tool that I use, and that has just been practiced for me ever since I got that, 6+ years ago at this point. So that is why I use that. It should be noted that there are a lot of sections in that review that I indicated as not being applicable. So while the review may seem cumbersome just at face value, there's a lot that can simply be skimmed over just because there's no comment to offer with respect to the application that's being offered. That being said, it is worth noting that the applicant's ultimate intent by filling in this wetland is to place a corner of a proposed or a conceptual, if that's the word that's being used, structure in part of that area that would be filled. So it's not just for a safety element that the applicant may be trying to address. So that is something that the commission may want to consider as part of reviewing this plan. As staff also mentioned when the commission was accepting the application, yes, there was a report from Matt Sanford of SLR International Corporation describing the offsite wetlands and the associated intermittent water course located at those addresses 123 and 125 Milwaukee Avenue. He did use a handheld GPS unit with some meter accuracy to locate where he conducted his soil tests. I'm just reiterating what's in his report, so it's nothing new. So that information, and I bring this up because the commission may have been looking for flags while they were out on the property conducting a site walk this past Saturday, October 26th. The commission had asked if that resource could be flagged, and it should be noted that wasn't done because the applicant didn't explicitly make a motion to say we need to have this resource identified and thereby located by another expert that is not Matt Sanford. His information, while he himself will gladly say he's not a surveyor, that information with the GPS unit still has some value. So it's just a matter of extrapolating the data that he does have and seeing whether or not it does add anything to what the applicant has already provided to you. It is worth noting that this plan does not show any other activities outside of, them filling in the depression that's on the site. And while what they have submitted thus far to the Planning and Zoning Commission is a conceptual plan, this commission may want to consider, confirming that there are going to be no grading activities, no clearing activities, anything else that may occur within that resulting upland review area, even if it isn't a building or a driveway or a septic system component or a stormwater management system component or any other man-made improvement of that nature. My report is my report. The commission, can ask me any questions that they may have on that during their period tonight, if you so wish. But at this time, that's really the basis for what I have to say to you. So.
And when you refer to the location, are you talking about the disputed on-site wetland, or are you speaking of the off-site wetlands? When you talk about grading and
Well, the off-site wetlands. I don't know how. It should be noted that the plan that you have that's on the screen, while it locates, the 2x2 possible poorly drained soils at the base of the ash tree, it doesn't say who located it. So, it's worth confirming that, hey, if there is going to be an area on the property, who was it that located it? And, if they're talking about filling an adjacent uplands, okay, what is that? Because it's not shown here on these plans. So those are questions that are worth asking the applicant.
And you said that Mr. Scott, was it? Who went out with the GPS tracker?
Matt Stanford.
Matt Sanford, excuse me.
Yes, that's
Mr.
correct.
Sanford went out. Do you have any idea with what precision that GPS tracking device can locate?
It is with, as he says in his report, it is sub-meter accuracy. So, the level of accuracy is to be within one meter, or if you want to convert to imperial units, within 3 feet
Approximately
roughly.
3 feet. Thank you. Okay, staff comments? Good.
If the commission has any questions that they want to ask me during their period, I'm happy to answer them. That's all I have at this point.
The applicant would like to respond, Madam Chair. First off, handheld GPS systems, you have to relate yourself to a property line. And I doubt Mr. Sanford, as a soil scientist, nor I as an engineer, can do that. Only a land surveyor can do it. So putting his GPS locations of wetland flags on an overlay of the town GIS mapping, which everybody in the professional field knows is basically a pretty picture of land use in a given town, is not an accurate survey. That being said, as I pointed out before, with the concept plan, there will be no activities even within the upland review areas as laid out by Mr. Sanford. Regarding whatever else might happen on this site, that's not relevant to this application. This application is to fill in the hole solely that way. And I would strongly caution you, based on 40 years of doing this in front of land use commissions, you have to consider what I have submitted. What may come down the pike down the road is irrelevant. If I need an activity permit, believe me, I will be back in front of you.
Understood.
But I need to make that clear for the record. So, thank you.
Mhm. All right. So we are going to probably move into the public comment section.
Yes, if you want to do that, Madam Chair, go right ahead.
Yes, indeed. Do we have members of the public that would like to speak to the application? If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record.
My name is Alan Akowitz and I live at 10 Putnam Park Road.
Thank you. I do want to make sure, I'm sorry, I should have said this before I invited you to speak, if you'll grant me. I want to make sure that all comments that happen tonight are related to the wetlands activities that are happening, or the proposed activities and how they impact wetlands on the site, and try and keep comments on that topic. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Well, it might not fit that because the last meeting that we were here, we were supposedly allowed to ask questions. And at the end of the meeting, they said, sorry, we're not taking any questions.
I believe you're referring to the planning and zoning meeting, not the Inland
Yes.
Wetlands Commission meeting.
Okay.
For clarification.
And they said, no, we're not taking any questions with no explanation as to why. But my question has to do with the planning and zoning. All right, let me just ask it.
Absolutely.
At the end of my driveway, the people that lived at 9 Putnam Park Road across the street had a mailbox there. They're talking putting 4 to 6 units in there. I want to know where they're going to put mailboxes because it will obscure my field of vision and my neighbors at number 8.
Is
Okay?
it my place to respond and bring that back to the topic at hand?
Yeah, well, there's that prerequisite, and then staff can piggyback on your response, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your comment, sir. Unfortunately, that's outside of the scope of what we do here for this particular section of the application. We're looking
Okay.
at impacts to the wetlands, and we do not have a site plan here in order to address your concerns. So if your concerns persist and the applicant brings up something before planning and zoning, then I would suggest that you attend that meeting and bring up concerns
Well,
there.
that's why we came to the last meeting. And
Totally
we were
understood. That's out.
Pretty much,
So-
and I'm going to be very frank, we were pretty much blown off.
I can appreciate your
Everybody that
frustration,
lived-
but that's not this board
Right.
nor our purview, so I can't really
So-
speak to that.
Was
So-
that all? Was that all?
Madam Chair, if I may. So staff apologizes for the public having to spend that time to only get that information
Right.
that night. It is not staff or the planning and zoning's place for that matter to feel as though that the public cannot offer comment, okay? It should be noted that the Planning and Zoning Commission will continue their hearing for that application at their next regular meeting, which will be held on,
Oh, excuse me, I believe it's November 12th, David.
that is correct. It is, November 12th. I was realizing that I'm not plugged in and I'm gonna lose battery if I don't fix that, so that's why I'm doing this. Okay. No, you're good. You're good. So, if you do have, comments that you want to offer, sir,
Mhm.
for that commission, I would advise that you attend that meeting. And they will, that's correct. And they will offer, that's correct. And they will offer an opportunity for, public comment at that meeting.
Okay,
Okay?
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other members of the public that would like to comment? Yes, would you state your name and address for the record,
Sure,
please?
my name is Christina Johnson. I live at 127 Milwaukee Avenue. And I think I spoke, earlier, with you, Dave, maybe on the phone
That's correct.
today. My address is out of the 2 homes that were, notified, but I had to hire an excavator because I've been at my property for 30 years. And this, year in particular, there was such runoff. I'm the next house behind, where the clearing and the topography, changes have happened. I didn't know about a pool that was empty, but now I'm even more curious about that because there was such a deluge of water coming down my property, washing out the driveway, going into the basement, coming over the lawn. I had an excavator come and I'm like, what the heck is going on? He said, I've never seen anything like this. So cost occurred to me to hire him for drainage and changing and trying to control a lot of the water that was pouring from that area. I had people from the town come. I had people from the state come. I said, something must have happened on Route 58. Something is going on up there. When the state told me that there were no changes in sewerage or draining on the road, the town said the same thing. I said, Billy O'Boy is his name, he's an excavator, and I said, I just can't, he said, I can't figure it out. So we took a little walk up there, and found that it is, the house, in question that's, being, land cleared, trees cleared, things changed, and evidently now there's a big hole from where a pool was emptied, I don't know. But something is going on, and it is costing me money to maintain my property, and I just want to make sure that I don't incur more costs. So I am very concerned.
Thank you very much.
Good question.
We're gonna, yes, we can ask. the public.
I'm responding to her.
Yeah, if you want to clarify some of the
Information. Right.
Yeah.
comments that you raised.
When was that? Was that the day of the floods that we had? Was it August
18th.
12, 18?
The 18th of August.
What was the
There's
date
been a lot of
or the incidents?
increased water coming down date wise. You know, I'd come home from work, I look, I go, what the heck is going on? Did I write all the dates? No. Was there a time when I said, okay, this is outrageous? It was probably, I had the town come, in January. I had the state come around that time as well. I was
January
told-
of 2024? Like you already had flooding problems as of January or something?
Yeah, but I mean, there was, Billy would know more because he kept driving by my property looking as we tried to figure out what. And yes, obviously people were telling me we've had more rain, there's so much more rain, but it was prior to that.
I
And
mean, this
so,
summer was there. Yeah, this spring and summer we had record rainfall for sure.
Yeah.
In certain events.
yeah.
But you were
but it was-
experiencing
it was
before we had the
before- it
record
was-
rainfall,
it
I
was
think is what we're
before
trying to
that. You know, I've been there for 30 years. It's never been like that. And we're tying it into the fact that this is going on at that house, and now I'm even more curious.
I'm curious as well. Do we have a date of the land clearing operations that happened at 9 Putnam Park Road?
You can ask the applicant.
I was told it was this year. I remember from the sidewalk. but
Yeah,
when was
Steve
the-
Trinkus for the record. Yeah, the site, there was a lot of brush invasives on it, and that's all Tim did. He cleared that out of the way. No grading was done on the site at all. The ground surface that is on the topo map is what's out in the field, except for digging of test holes, which we dug and backfilled. There's been no earth excavation on the site at all. The soils on the lower end of the site, as would also apply to 123 and 125 Milwaukee, just downgrading us, are hard pan soils. That whole hillside of Putnam Park is hard pan hills soils. And especially in the storm of August 18th, rain came down so hard, the soil had no prayer of infiltrating it. So even on a vegetated surface, it was shooting runoff all over the place. I live in Southbury, where we had 10.4 inches in 11 hours. And I will tell you, part of my side yard, which is maybe a 3% grade, not very steep, I had an 8-foot wide, 6-inch deep thing of water running from my level front yard around the house. Water simply could not infiltrate and ran off during that event. The intensities were 2 inches per hour for 3 straight hours.
I think we were talking though about
Well,
incidents
well,
long
This
before
was
No,
that.
prior-
this is
Well,
pertinent. When you say hard pan soils, what do you mean?
Hard pan soil,
Surface or
well,
soil?
I will give you the engineering, then Jim can elaborate if
Yeah.
I'm missing. A hard pan soil is a soil, typically the loam, you have topsoil and you have subsoil. The subsoil is generally very fine sandy to a silt loam, very fine soil particles. Underneath that loam layer is a layer of very compacted silts, sands, and clays. It's basically like concrete. So a perched water table sits on top of that. That soil is very hard. It does not allow infiltration to go down. So when the loam layer above it gets saturated, then water that falls on the ground surface just runs off because it cannot infiltrate into the loam layer. And that's what this whole area on Putnam Park Road, both sides of the road have. I mean, I grew up in Reading. I can tell you, there's always been water bleeding out of that side of both sides of Putnam Park Road. But on this site, we have not done anything to change the drainage conditions there. Ms. Johnson lives well, beyond where the wetlands were found on 125, just on the other side of what shows on your GIS is an old abandoned roadway. It also shows a water course just to the west of her house. And I don't know the area. I haven't looked at the site, but she's down at the bottom of the hill there. And again, water unfortunately collects at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, it's
We have not-
exactly, yeah.
We have not done anything on that site to change the water patterns that occur.
Just some brush removal.
Just the
as of
brush removal.
When approximately a year ago, like fall. of
About
last
a
year.
year ago, yeah, because
Okay.
it was very difficult to get around the site. I mean, it was all kinds of
I
invasive.
mean, I don't see evidence of
species.
soils having eroded off that site too
Yeah.
much.
Some photos and videos.
Yeah,
on the camera.
when
You
you
might
live,
want to submit those to our staff, to Dave. That would be great.
yeah, Jim McManus, a soil
Thursday of
scientist.
November.
When you live on a hard pan, seasonally, you're gonna have wetness. You know, you might even have a sump pump, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
And it
but I've been
probably
there for
runs-
30 years.
yeah.
This is something completely different.
Well, this has been different.
We lost our.
I'm sorry, can you just say your name?
Sorry,
No worries.
Karen Ackowitz, 10 Putnam Park Road.
Thank you.
And in January, we had a huge problem. We have a sump pump in the basement that pumps out.
Nonstop.
And during the winter, we had a lot of water and the pump failed once. Had about 18 to 2 feet of water in the basement. In the furnace, we've already replaced the furnace once. In the hot water heater. So we pump out of the basement, down our property. Where's it gonna go? Into the street. In February, I got a letter from the state of Connecticut. I can't pump my water
Mhm.
into the street because it's causing an ice hazard. I was not happy about the letter. And the state offered that they could fix it for us and resolve the problem, but at a cost to us about $8,000 on a house that we just built. We resolved the problem ourselves by diverting pipes. But August 18th, we weren't home for that flooding. And we got a notice to hurry up and get back to the house that there's again 2 feet of water in the basement. And at that point, we lost our hot water heater. And
And the furnace had to be repaired.
Can I?
Yeah.
Which side of the road? What's your address again?
we're across the street from the.
They're
we're on-
they're
You're across, you're on the west.
They're
You're
uphill.
uphill of the
Yeah,
road.
come look at our
Okay.
property.
Okay.
And they said, well, this is because you have wetlands. You know, no, I've been there 38 years. It's not wetlands. There's a 12-inch drainage pipe from Short Drive that drains directly into our property. And there's a culvert pipe halfway down the property, but there was never any connection from Short Drive to the pipe. So whenever we get rain, it doesn't matter an inch, 2 inches. Even now, we haven't had rain, there's a deficit. We still can't mow the lawn in back of our house because the lawnmower sinks into the ground from all the water we've had.
So the hill keeps going up from your property and that's yours. Yours is a relatively low
The hill-
spot on another
everything-
hill that goes up.
Everything pours down onto us, the same type of situation that she.
Are you,
Yes.
are you on the
Less than.
the opposite side of the street from the property and development?
Right.
Madam Chair, do you want me to bring up Bethel GIS so you can?
I would like to know that.
Here's the other thing. We were told, quote unquote, about the water. It's a common enemy. We can't take care of it. The people that live on Midway, you could see drain pipes coming from their gutters, coming down my neighbor's yard and right across into my yard. The storm drain on Short Drive, where do they put the snow? On my yard.
Yeah.
Okay?
I can understand all of your frustrations.
No, what
Well,
you don't
I can't understand all of
understand
your frustrations, but
is that why wasn't the pipe, when it was put in 30+ years ago, connected with the pipe to the storm drain on 10 Putnam Park Road? We cannot get a satisfactory answer.
Understood, and I
Okay.
don't want to invalidate your concerns, but I do want to bring us back to the topic here, and I'm not sure how this connects to the application that we're looking at.
Just water, I guess that's.
This
what
is all-
I don't want to minimize your concerns. I think that they're very important and clearly they're very impactful for you. I'm not minimizing them at all, but I need to keep the meeting to the topic of what we're reviewing here. And I would definitely encourage you to bring these concerns to the appropriate town officials to get your questions answered. And if I could
Do
answer
that.
them for you, I would, but they're outside of what we're here to review
When
tonight.
the water comes off a short drive, comes
Understood.
onto my property, it goes across the street to number 9
Yep,
and number 11.
gotcha.
So it is their concern too.
Sure. Sure, sure.
Madam Chair, if I may, I find all of this testimony actually very helpful in the broader, like understanding the broader hydrologic regime of that region, of that hill.
Thank you.
I'll take as much input on that as I can get, because we have a few, we have some issues at play.
Okay.
So info, especially from the neighboring property owners, is really, really useful to understanding the hydrologic regime of the site. Anyway, for
Do you
me.
have more questions for them?
I had a question for Mr. Trinkus.
I see you, Ms. Leon. I see you up on the screen. I just want to acknowledge the people in the room first, and then you have not been missed. Go ahead. Nico.
Well, while I have the floor, I guess, what was the select fill you were going to use? You'd like to use to fill the.
When we had this on the prior 8-30G application, the 2 septic systems for the 6 units were on either side of that depression. And I spoke with Matt Pollock from the State Health Department and said, Matt, we have this hole where this pool was. We want to clean out the hole. And because it's between the 2 systems, we're just going to fill it with select fill, which is sand and gravel. And that's what we're going to put in there. That's all. So, regarding the drainage, I'm not dismissing neighbors' concerns absolutely all, because unfortunately, many portions of Bethel, Reading, and many communities that have these hard pan soils, what has changed over time is the intensity of rainstorms that have gotten shorter but harder rains. And when you have these hard pan soils, it's basically a plug of water on everybody's property because the soil simply cannot absorb it. And what the town did when Short Rock was built, or Short Drive, what, back in the 50s maybe, I don't know if it goes back, but it wasn't uncommon when a lot of these neighborhoods were built uphill where you are, that again, they discharged the pipe right off the road, down into the woods. And that's,
Yeah, and that woods is in my
I
backyard.
agree completely that
Before Midway or Short
it's been
Drive.
done in many, many places, even where you don't have the hard pan soils.
Right.
DPW is really the best place to go to try and get them to address.
But our house was there before Short and Midway.
Understood. I think it's a
Yeah,
valuable
that's a good
discussion, but I really
recommendation,
think that
though.
it's not.
Public Works
Yeah.
would be a good place
Yep.
to go,
All
I
right.
think,
And-
maybe, but we
and when-
digress a little bit.
And should this application land back before planning and zoning, then perhaps that would be an appropriate place to bring up
Okay.
drainage issues when we're talking about whether the site is going to be developed with, and how those drainage concerns are going to be addressed. But at the moment, we're trying to establish,
I got you.
please understand that I have
Yeah,
empathy for
no,
your
I do.
situation.
All
and-
things wet. This is our.
I understand, but
That
what
is
we're
our-
here to review tonight is whether or not the applicant can fill this particular, so that's what we need to try and stay focused on.
Yeah.
I had a question. I just wanted to know,
Can you just state your name?
Christina Johnson, 127 Milwaukee Avenue.
Thank you.
I just was curious, there was a pool that was emptied at that site? Is that
No.
correct?
I don't think so.
Years and years ago, way before Mr. Draper purchased the property, there had been one of those above ground pools that had an aluminum frame with a liner. And generally those were set on the ground surface. I grew up with that type of pool, with neighbors. This one, they kind of dug a hole to set it down in the ground, maybe to make it easier for kids to get in instead of having to climb 3 foot up. But, when the house, fell, I guess, apart, basically, the pool had collapsed, there's remains of vinyl liner out there. So it just, there was a pool, above ground pool there that, was taken out. Mr. Draper took a whole bunch of debris out of there, but there's still vinyl you can see in the field from that.
There's a shallow depression where it used to lie.
That's really all that's there. So.
Can we keep discussing? Do you want to move to something else? I have a little more discussion.
We're not at our discussion
we're
yet.
not
That's
even
why I
at-
keep
okay.
trying to,
Right,
you can
right.
ask questions of the public, but
We're in
we're gonna
public
move to
now.
our discussion later, correct?
Okay, we're still.
I do see you, Ms. Leone, and I'm not ignoring you. Is there anyone else present in the room tonight who has comments that they would like to offer to the commission? All right, Ms. Leone, Mrs. Leone, and
Hi,
could you
I
address-
can,
could you
excuse me,
name and address for the record before you make your comments?
Michelle Leone,
Thank you.
8 Putnam Park Road.
Thank you so much.
Back in well, I had presented this to planning and zoning previously, and I just want to bring it up again that in January of 2024, when we had that freak winter rainstorm, my basement was flooding, and we dug the basement up, all the cement, and there is a running river or stream, whatever you want to call it, underneath my property. My property is sloped and it goes straight across the street to 9 Putnam Park Road. I had addressed the issue previously that with 2, I don't care if they're engineered or not, septic systems located at the bottom of that property, there's going to be an issue. Now, back in August when we had the rain, if those septic tanks were down there, what kind of disaster would have happened? Earlier, I was looking online at the documents, and there was a document that showed the 100-foot radius from, I believe it was 125 Milwaukee. I want to know, because the 100-foot radius went on to 9 Putnam Park Road. I want to know where those septic tanks are in conjunction to the outer circle of that radius.
Understood. We don't have a building plan here tonight because this isn't a proposal for a building, although I understand that you brought that to planning and zoning, but this particular proposal is to address something different.
Well, it was listed under tonight's meeting, those documents. There was
Yeah.
like 3 different documents. It
Yes.
had nothing to do with what was being built or what was originally there. It
Well,
had to do with the 100-foot radius of the wetlands on 125 Milwaukee.
Yes, that is a part of the record, but the location of the proposed septic would not be a part of this application. That would be for planning and zoning, correct?
Right. If the applicant has a conceptual plan that involves improvements of that nature, and if they are located within a regulated area, they should be shown on a plan.
Okay, so I should print those documents out, and if it comes back to planning and zoning, bring those to whoever's attention.
If I don't mean to interrupt your testimony, Ms. Leone, but I believe what she is referring to is the report that was prepared by Mr. Stanford. As part of his report, he used Bethel GIS to approximate, based on the GPS coordinate data that he had gathered as part of his soil tests, where the location of that intermittent water course was on 123 and 125 Milwaukee Avenue, and thereby the extent of any regulated upland review area that would extend from that. What he produced, based on what he's showing on Bethel GIS, a portion of that regulated upland review area appears to extend onto the applicant's property. The applicant is stating that they have amended whatever proposed concept plan to not have any development elements within that area. But,
Would you be able to pull that up for me? That document?
Yes.
Excuse me, as point of order here. What's at planning and zoning has no bearing on this application, and I strenuously object to that being part of this record. It is not part of this record. This record is the one plan I submitted to fill in this hole. That's it. And that's all we're discussing. We're not discussing septic systems, proposed development, or anything.
I just want to see the radius.
The radius was in the southeast corner of the site. I will tell you, the original septic systems under the former 8-30G application were located outside the 100-foot upland review area.
Well, if you pull up the documentation on the Bethel.gov website for today's meeting, that document is listed there. So I think everyone should see it.
It's not under, I have not submitted that application as the agent for Mr. Draper, and that information should not be part of this record. That is
Well, it's there.
zoning record.
Beg your
I
pardon.
saw it.
Beg your pardon if I may have the floor. Madam Chair.
You may have it. Well, actually, can you just pause for a
No,
minute?
no, I have a response for her.
I
and
understand
Mr. Green.
completely, understood, but I'd like to just table you for a second and give our agent an opportunity to respond for what should and should not be included in the record before we continue conversation
Okay.
around a disputed item for the record. Okay?
Legally, you can't include stuff that hasn't
I
been submitted
understand
by
your
the
point, Mr.
applicant.
Trinkus.
I'm-
Absolutely. You've stated it clearly and I'm
I've
getting.
done this a long
I
time.
understand, Mr.
And I
Trinkus.
want it
I am
clear.
noting and I am responding to your request to limit the conversation. That's what I'm doing right now.
Well, nothing gets added. to
I
the
am
record.
doing that right now. So I'm asking you, Nico, to please hold your thought for a moment and let me toss it back to our agent or to Mr. Anders, if that's appropriate. But
Madam Chair, thank you. This document that is being discussed was mentioned when the application was discussing how to accept this application. If the applicant wanted to object, or let me rephrase, I'm sorry. When the application was accepted, if my memory serves me correctly, when that application was discussed, when that document was discussed, the applicant didn't explicitly make any objection to that document being incorporated into the record. And Attorney Andrus, if he has any embellishments that he wants to offer with regard to that, but that was, you know, an element that that staff wanted to make sure was addressed by this commission pursuant to the Planning and Zoning Commission's resolution of denial. That's why that was brought up when the application was accepted.
thank you. I would like to hear legal counsel from Attorney Anders and his thoughts on this, since he is our legal representation here.
Certainly, I think staff is entitled to put in any evidence that they believe relevant. The applicant does not control what staff or its consultants can put in the record. Whether it has anything to do with your decision is, you know, that's up to the commission to decide whether it's relevant. But on the question of whether you can submit it in the record, the answer is yes. And just to provide further context to this, again, this originated, I think, as Mr. Trinkhouse mentioned, from a planning and zoning decision, a decision to deny an application that on basically two grounds. One was because they didn't apply for wetlands, and the second was related to septic, both of which are being addressed. There are, the applicant is attempting to address those with the reviewing and has prevented a modification application. And in conjunction with the modification application, the time frame for planning and zoning to decide if there is a wetlands decision going along with it, which this is, then that extends the time frame. And when you're done with this decision, what the wetlands has to send a report back to planning and zoning for planning and zoning to review. So I think it's a little bit anomalous to say the whole reason why this is before you is because of a plan for a 6 one-bedroom unit development on this property that has it, and I understand the applicant says it involves filling a small portion of wetlands, and I understand what they've said. Hey, we revised it otherwise, so we're not doing a regulated activity. If we have to revise it further, we'll come back. Understood that 100%. But this application is in connection with a zoning application. Zoning is going to be you're going to send a report or a decision back to zoning that they will review and to address one of their questions. And the application before zoning is different than the one here. It's a conceptual plan. I understand it's subject to review. They're looking at other things. There may be modifications about it, but that plan does show that a building is on this area. That this is in connection with the development. And I don't know why the applicant is afraid of that. I mean, that I understand I think you can address it. But certainly, yeah, that is the context of what this is. That's why they're here, and you have a right to put it in the record. And I think the applicant should address it and say why it doesn't make any difference or what the wetlands impacts are. I understand what they've said, but you can certainly hear it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So
Well, we don't know exactly where the off-site wetland boundary is and how it relates to our site that we're talking about now. So we don't know where the upland review area is. And so somebody taped it in a field or somebody used a GPS point, to me, is irrelevant. We don't really know. And anyways, right now we're just filling a 2x2 square foot area of poorly drained soil, and we're not going to have any impact to the offsite well.
And to follow up that point,
Or the upland review area for that matter.
Steve Trinkus, for the record, to follow up Mr. Andrews' point, I respectfully disagree. I've worked with many land use attorneys. If I wanted the concept plan as part of the record, I would have submitted it. You may have, obviously, your staff comments from health, engineering, they can be shared with the record, but I strongly object to the inclusion of it in the record. I'm going up as the agent. I'm stating that clearly. It's not part of this application. Any regulated activities from that concept plan are not being requested here. We're filling in the hole. That's all we're doing. So I strongly object. You can do what you want, but I'm just going on the record. I object to it.
thank you.
Madam Chair, can I make a quick response? I think it's fine, Mr. Trinkus. We understand your objection. But the basic issue is the applicant doesn't determine everything that's in the record. Neighbors can put things into the record. Staff can put things into the record. The whole premise of your objection is that you control the record, and you don't. I understand you don't want to put it in. That's fine. You don't have to. But you can't control what goes in and out. And if staff wants to put it in, and I think it's relevant because it's connection with a zoning application that shows it. So and frankly, I don't understand why you're running from that. To tell the truth.
I'll tell you why I'm running for it. That's a P&Z issue. What you're effectively trying to discuss is commingling two separate applications. The modification is in front of planning and zoning to determine if planning and zoning prefers the modification to the original plan. If they do not, then the land use appeal, which Mr. Marcus has taken, will continue through the court system. If they prefer the modification plan, then it will be fully designed and we will go back to planning and zoning. In this particular case, we simply want to fill in the hole, and that's it. And that's the plan I submitted. I didn't submit a modification plan. I could leave the site vacant and still fill in the hole. That's what I want to do. And I prepared that plan by my office. It's not something your staff did or the public did, which I agree can be submitted. It's a plan by my office, and it was not submitted to the wetlands file. There's two separate files here, and they have to be kept separate, in my professional opinion.
This had to do with 125 wetlands. The wetlands on 125 Milwaukee Avenue.
Okay, so at this point, I feel like Ms. Leone has requested that we take a look at that map and put it up.
Would you like to have that delineate or
I think we
Mr.
can-
Sanford's report brought up to the screen?
I feel like.
Yes, I would like to see what was listed there today that I looked at with the 100-foot radius on 125 Milwaukee. It has to do with the wetlands.
I'm trying to get to staff comments. Really, if you have something from Ms. Leone, I'll be happy to. Okay.
So this is the figure that Mr. Sanford produced as part of his report.
Thank you. Would you be able to zoom in on that so that it's a little clearer?
So for the commission's context, the properties that are highlighted in red are 123 Milwaukee Avenue to the east or to the west, 125 Milwaukee Avenue to the east, and the subject property, 9 Putnam Park Road, is, if you can follow my cursor, it may be very faint on your screen. This is the northern side property line. This is the easternmost property line, which is abutted by
This is
123
east,
Milwaukee.
north, south.
And then here is the southern side property line for 9 Putnam.
Can you point out where the little pool is, David?
It's right here.
The rough location for the area to be filled in is where my cursor is and where Mr. Trinkus is pointing to.
Right, so
I'm
it's,
not sure that our.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. if
Cursor's
people on
not
Zoom
there,
can
but
see either.
it is right here.
Yeah,
I can see that, Mr. Trinkus. I'm not sure if the people on Zoom can see that.
Madam Chair, I'm having my cursor follow with Mr.
I see. I can't see your
I don't
cursor.
see it on Zoom either,
Ms.
so.
Leone, can you see that?
I
Answer your
I
question.
was about to chime in. I cannot see it on Zoom. I'm familiar with the
Okay.
site. I looked at the notes, so I know what we're looking at, but the people that are not familiar might need it pointed out easier. I cannot see your cursor.
Okay. Well,
I
can now.
I
Let me
can
try
see the
this.
cursor, but I thought that the pool was more towards 7 Putnam Park.
It,
let
it's,
me try. Let
this
me
is
try.
the only,
this.
it is towards the northern portion of the site.
Just let me. Okay. Is my cursor is visible now? Yes.
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 Okay.
A little
where it
bit,
is.
a little bit up there, where that dark spot is.
Where the
Okay,
dark-
right
That's
there.
where the pool
Right.
is.
Correct.
All of-
And in the 100-foot radius, I believe is where the supposed
Dotted line.
engineered 2 septic tank locations would be.
No, Mrs. Leone, no, they're not. What was, David, if you can keep your cursor right where it is,
Yes.
this was the area where the stormwater management system was possibly within that 100-foot upland review. The 2 septic areas were bracketing that low spot that we're talking about with the pool. One is here and one is here. They were not within the 100-foot upland review in either scenario.
Thank you. Does that speak to your question, Ms. Leone?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was different, but if you say so.
Okay. Nico, did you have questions for Ms. Leone?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Leone, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Nico Jordan, Commissioner.
Hi, Nico.
Hi. My question was, what did you mean when you suggested that you had I think you said an underground river? Was that what you said? In your house or on your property somehow? What did you mean by that exactly? What evidence do you have for that?
I have videos.
Can you describe what's
My
in the-
basement was flooding back in January. Water was just flowing in. I needed to update the sub pump. And I had an excavator company come in and they dug a trench in the basement, which, they took all the slab of the basement out and it showed a running river underground.
And that was the water that would infiltrated from the major storm running on top of your hard pan that was underneath your basement. That's what you were.
Well, regardless, it's a sloped property.
Right.
And number 9 is even more sloped. So everything is running downhill.
View did not come up with a situation that would warrant that kind of problem.
David, can you bring up the map again, please?
Yes, I can.
Ms. Leone, I know you stated it for the record, but I can't remember what you said. What is your address?
8 Putnam Park.
Thank you.
Is it possible for you to put a topographic feature overlay?
I can try.
With the property on this, if
The
possible?
town GIS is only 10-foot topo, Nico. It's not very detailed,
Okay,
so.
good to know.
Yeah.
So 8 would be closer to
It's up-
302.
it's to
Is
the
that
north.
I know, I
correct?
wish we had
Yeah.
the USGS. map
Well, that's
site,
what
but-
that's what's on the GIS is
Oh, that's
10-foot
even
topo.
worse.
So that's
Doesn't show
all,
anything.
that's all that's shown.
So
If you pull up the site plan
Oh.
that New England Land Surveying did was field topography And that's very detailed topography of our site, not the adjacent.
Wait, that was maybe good to, no?
All right,
I couldn't see those dotted lines. before
Mr.
on that
Trinkus
screen.
is asking that the survey for the property be shown, and I'm
Okay.
going to do that.
Sweet.
While he's pulling that up, Ms. Leone, is your property closer to 302? Is that the direction for 8? You're adjacent, but closer?
Yes, I'm about 4 houses in from the light. Yes.
Okay,
So
but
first,
you're
I kinda
adjacent
wanted
to
to
this
see both
property.
properties. So it's across the street,
Ri-
up the
Right,
hill.
right.
Oh, it's not,
If,
right, alternate,
If-
that's,
yeah.
right.
if staff could offer a general characterization of the area, properties with even numbers
Right.
on
That was me. not
going southbound on Putnam Park Road are generally higher than properties that are on the odd numbered eastbound side of Putnam Park Road.
Can you show that again on your?
Correct.
Well, I just, so
You're
this is
across,
the,
yeah.
Yeah,
this is the survey.
but up the hill.
That, this is a boundary and topographical survey that was prepared for the applicant, okay?
So, you know, everything pitches, Steve Franks for the record, everything pitches, there's a curb line along Putnam Park Road, which keeps the water on Putnam Park Road on Putnam Park Road. The topography slopes, you know, from the high point along the edge of the road, you know, to the east, southeast, you know, generally it winds up to that southeast corner. The low point, there, you hold it right there, David. The low point is the southeast corner. That's 432 elevation, you know, 434, 36, 38, 40. So all the water naturally drains to that far corner in the southeast portion of the site.
Which we can confirm with our site walk that we just went on.
Yeah,
with,
yeah,
Mr.
you can see it
McManus
in the
on
field,
Saturday,
sure, yeah.
That the we're getting off the topic of your presentation. I understand. I want to keep it on that, but I find these testimonies and all of this of the surrounding area to be really helpful in understanding the whole groundwater regime of the whole area. And the intermittent water course that we've identified, it was just on the other side of that stone wall.
No,
Well, no, it's
it's
a
two
whole
properties
property
down.
down. It's 2
Now,
properties down.
would go 2 properties down and the hard pan is high enough so that the intermittent
Wait,
water course
when-
expresses itself.
Right, but when you say 2 properties,
2 properties
yeah,
down.
but that's not helpful because
It-
distance
it-
wise, it's
well-
about 20 feet,
No,
No,
maybe
no.
40. No, from the stone wall is the property line or no?
The
No,
stone
no.
wall's the property line. However, if you, David, could you pull up Matt's sketch again? Sorry.
Yes, I can.
Sorry to make you
It's
bounce
like
around.
80.
No, that's not a problem.
80.
I'm happy
No,
to
it
do
popped
that.
out
Now,
right
we're
below
only
the
just
stone
onto
wall.
our property about 20 feet, so that's 80 feet.
Well, I'm just identifying the location of the start of the
Which is start of
groundwater
Matt's-
seep.
Which is the start of Matt's flagging.
I didn't see any flags in the field.
No, but he put them on the plan, and I know exactly where he put the plan, because I looked at the
Great
water
to
course
see those
myself.
flags when we went out.
Right,
on
we
the
were just
site.
there, so I saw how
Well, I
close.
just know where the wetland boundary begins
So-
and ends.
Right, but I don't want to argue. My point was just that it was in that south,
Not-
No,
it's
it
not
was in
up
that
to-
southeast
it's not-
corner,
It's not.
just
adjacent.
downhill of,
80
excuse me,
Pause,
just
pause,
downhill
pause.
of the southeast corner of the property with the slope that you were just describing is there.
No, it's not. Let me
Mr.
set the record
pause.
straight.
Right there.
During.
I was on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
Understood. Can we let Dave comment? He's got
Well,
something
no,
to add.
during planning and zoning, when this issue, I think the neighbor at 123, it's my understanding, he reached out to land use staff. And then David asked SLR to go look at his site at 123, which is this property right here, adjacent to 9 Putnam Park Road. Matt looked at this property, there were no wetlands on it. Then they moved downhill to 125, and that's where Matt delineated the seepage.
Right.
But there are no wetlands here. And if you take, you know, this is 100 foot here, so this is 25 feet onto our property. So that wetland boundary is 75 feet east of our property. It is not on the
Can you
adjacent
identify the
property.
stone wall on this map?
The stone wall is the property line here, but Matt Sanford looked at this site. There are no wetlands on that site.
I concur with that.
There were large trees along the stone wall trees. Are
Yeah.
these them? These
Uh,
are the large
that's
trees here,
off-site.
correct?
those are off-site. The aerials sometimes don't pick.
So
them
the
up.
stone wall, I see a stone wall here. Is
No,
that, am
this-
I wrong?
No, the stone wall, our property line is right here. That's the stone wall.
I see a stone wall in this
Well,
map.
there could
right
be
here.
another.
I
one.
don't see a wall here.
So, Mr.
Wait, so my point is, beyond the stone wall, I found wet soils in after a month of no rain
at the start of the seep. I was
Well,
looking for the start of the seep. I don't know if it's where he flagged it
You
here.
may,
But
if
I
you had been
found
down to this wall, you were off Mr. Draper's property. It's not,
Yeah,
Mr.
we were on the
Draper
other
has a wall.
properties.
If there's another wall here and you were on that side of it,
I know.
then yes, you probably did see.
Okay, gentlemen, I,
What's down
I
here?
understand, and I would.
But
like
anyway,
to-
my point was I was
You
just trying to
go through as well.
confirm
I would
that.
like to pause your conversation. Dave.
I was just trying to confirm the
I
location.
totally
of the
understand, and I know you want to bring that in, and we're not at our comments
I didn't want
section
to
yet.
argue with anybody about it though, but.
But
I
we're,
will if
but
I
we're
have to.
not at our comment section yet, and we
Alright.
will be, and then we can
Well,
address all of these
proceed then.
questions.
Right. So, as I mentioned, and as Matt Sanford himself mentions in his report, the flags that you are looking at, or the
Marks on
the
map.
marks, thank you. That's perhaps a better term to describe what's shown on the plan that, or on the map, or the figure, thank you, the figure that Mr. Sanford produced, okay? Those are based on the GPS coordinates that Mr. Sanford gathered to reflect where he conducted his soil tests, okay? The commission asked why there were no flags out there when the commission performed their site walk. Staff did not ask SLR to do that. It was more to say, you know, there, and let me provide some brief context if I may clarify Mr. Trinkus's comments, okay? This matter was brought to us in the first place by Gary Anderson, owner of 123 Milwaukee Avenue, and his comment was directed to the health department. They performed an investigation. Okay, they saw, you know, the features that Mr. Pollack has photographed in his report, and they identified those to me. I, in turn, went out and met Mr. Anderson, confirmed what Ms. Vasile saw, the Director of Public Health, and I advised the applicant during their hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission that there was this off-site resource. I had asked them if they were going to investigate it. They said no. So I accordingly, requested SLR to investigate this resource, and they produced this report. And this report, you know, as has been mentioned, was brought back to the applicant during the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, and this item was discussed as part of that record. And that's why, you know, staff felt it was worth bringing it to your attention, because it is a regulated wetland area. It does have a regulated alternate review area that's associated with that, more for this commission's edification and affirmation than anything else. It's just to make sure that there are no regulated activities that are taking place within that alternate review area. And if the commission feels that the testimony that the applicant has offered is sufficient enough to prove that, you know, between what they are saying to you and what Mr. Sanford has submitted, that's your decision. If you want to direct staff or the applicant to investigate this further, you as a commission should discuss that. But that's all I really have to say at this time on this. I don't want to try to beat the point, but that's why it's here.
So then, if I may, to clarify your comments and try and consolidate them.
Sure.
Make sure that I
Yes.
understand. The flag there, that the marked points on that map were identified by people working for the town,
Not
by
Sanford.
Matt Sanford, not by the applicant,
That's-
nor anyone that the applicant may have hired to do so.
That's correct.
They declined to investigate that.
That's correct.
If I understand what Mr. Jordan is saying, which we will talk about in staff comments when we get there.
For the record, I'm using my phone to look at the map.
Thank
and It's
you.
only ever and now
Thank you.
for official
Thank you.
business.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
if I understand what Mr. Jordan is bringing to the table, he wants to discuss whether or not that wetland area extends beyond the points on the map. Sorry, I'm losing my words, that were identified in Mr. Sullenberg. But that has not been investigated by the applicant. It has not been flagged. Is that correct, Mr. McManus? You did not go out there and identify
But
it?
there's a point of correction on
One
that.
moment, I would like to get an
No.
answer from
Wait,
Mr. McManus, and I
You
would
can
be
answer.
happy to acknowledge you.
I'm not disputing that Mr. Sanford found a wetland. I think the only thing we're disputing is how far is the upland area go from it?
But we don't know the boundaries of the water course
Well,
there.
I do, but I didn't flag it.
So we don't know the boundaries of the water course there because it has not been properly
Right.
delineated. I'm trying to get
But-
that piece of
But what
information.
I'm saying is that he depicted it. His notation on his report is representative to what I was viewing in the field on Saturday, the 26th, right, Dave?
That's correct, the
October
26th.
26th.
And when you go out to go flag a water course, a wetland, an area and review it, do you just use visual observation or do you use other methods to determine whether or not something qualifies?
I use other methods, but in this particular case, this topography was such that I could see what he was doing, and 35 plus years of experience kind of indicates to me that what I saw in the field and what pretty much coincides with what he GPSed and put on a map was representative to what I was looking at.
And in your experience, in your many, many years of experience with this, have you ever found that sometimes your visual observations of an area did not match up with the other tools that you use and you had some things that were surprises? to you?
Sure, everybody makes errors in everything.
I wouldn't even call it an error, just sometimes things aren't always visible that
They're not
you
always
could,
visible, that's why we use all augers.
absolutely. Okay, so we didn't use any of those tools to
No, but
properly
Mr.
delineate the
Sanford, and
boundaries.
clearly Mr. Sanford has.
So Mr. Sanford, in his report, if I may, and I will bring it up for the commissioner. Thank you all for bearing with me as we all navigate technology together. Okay.
Results.
Can everybody see my screen?
I can,
Yes.
well, I can't read it, but,
Yes, I can.
oh, I can.
Legible here, you might want to increase the size for some other people on.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I will try to do that. I'm not finding the means to do
Right
so.
plus, at the bottom, Dave.
It's legible for me, but I don't know about anyone else.
It's the plus bottom for me is included by sharing the window button.
Oh,
Control,
Ooh, I can try. There we go. Okay, this temporarily will work. Is that better? Mr. Siemens?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm good. I'm just more concerned about people other than myself.
No, understood. Delineation
that's
methods.
message. You
Okay.
can go
All right.
down.
So, Mr. Sanford, at the end of page 1, he says, and I quote, "Soils were examined using a Dutch auger." Right. End quote. So he put a piece of equipment that he, as a professional wetland scientist, uses to determine the presence of wetland soils.
but was he out there determining the boundaries and the extension or just the presence? Because you can say this exists here without knowing that it also exists.
Right,
He
right.
laid out flagging
So-
locations on his map, meaning that he attempted.
Right.
His attempt or why he did it was to put in a
Create
wetland
boundaries.
boundary closest to the
Proposed.
project site. He
Right.
didn't delineate downstream because you only needed the one
Understood,
site.
just trying to ascertain, because I'm not a professional soil scientist.
Right, but that's how we do it.
And to piggyback on to Mr. McManus's point, Mr. Sanford, when I was out in the field with him, he said, I could continue flagging down the hill because it appears that this intermittent water course continues further away from the site,
Yes.
but that may not necessarily be relevant to this application. So I'm going to focus on this immediate area as far as 123 and 125 Milwaukee Avenue.
We typically say it's outside of our scope. His scope was
Oh,
not to
moving
delineate,
downstream.
his scope was not to delineate the wetlands.
No, I understand. I was more
150 feet
concerned
down.
about the upper boundary that is closest to the applicant's
right.
property. And I
That's right.
wanted to
Yeah,
clarify
and-
whether or not that had been appropriately.
Yeah, and Mr. Sanford was out there with his auger, taking samples in more than the locations that he marked on his plan. When he looked at his samples, if he thought that those were not reflective of wetland soils, and he was going through the methodology that he uses, the hue, the value, and the chroma, and he had a Munsell color chart, it was pretty, insightful for me, because I have never been.
You were geeking out.
That's how we do every delineation we do.
Right.
Every delineation you guys see, that's how it's done.
Right. So that's what he was doing when he was out there. And if there was a point or a sample that, based on his expertise that he thought was a wetland soil, he explained to me why, and he, held his GPS unit up and he marked where that location was, and then continued on with his work.
Approximately 3 feet.
Right, the sub-meter accuracy, that's correct.
And to piggyback on David's point, why I determined or made an assessment where I pretty much knew where the boundary was without having a flag to show me where the boundary was, because I've seen his map. And I saw the topography changes around it. I know exactly what he did. I didn't need it on. I knew exactly what he did. And from his map, I'm standing in the location where it's his highest point.
Okay. Mr. Trinkus?
Yeah, 2 points. One, this wetland boundaries Matt Sanford delineated is 125 Milwaukee. There are no wetlands on 123, according to his sketch. Point
Right.
one. Point two, when this was brought to the applicant only has the right to have his consultants go on his own property. I do not have the right to go on an adjacent property.
Not without permission.
With
Did you
Mr.
see it?
McManus does not,
You do with permission. You do with permission.
well,
Very seldom happens.
it's very seldom that an owner will give me permission to like dig test pits on his property as an example.
Well, was that investigated in
No,
this case and denied?
It's not our
I'm
responsibility.
not suggesting that it is. You're bringing it into the conversation,
Well,
and so I'm
well,
asking whether
David
it was
stated
pursued.
that, and it was stated that the applicant declined to delineate the off-site wetland. The point is, we have no right to delineate the off-site wetland. What needs
Without
to be,
permission.
what needs to be properly done here is for the owner of 125 Milwaukee Avenue to hire a licensed land surveyor that can tie into the existing survey maps of Mr. Draper's property, 123 and 125, locate Mr. Sanford's flags and show them on a Class A2 survey, which is an accuracy of 1 foot to every 5,000 feet. That's the proper way to determine the actual location of this wetland relative to Mr. Draper's property. Then the 100-foot upland review area can accurately be defined. Taking it from GPS mapping and GIS,
I
handheld
understand that you
things
dispute that.
is
It's been noted.
it's not only disputed, it is not valid because he can't relate it to the boundaries of the property. That's the key difference.
I want to take a pause for a minute because it feels to me like we've moved into the discussion without actually moving into the discussion. Are there any other comments from members of the public? Okay,
I'd like to make a comment that
I would like to close that out before we get further into this because I'm falling into it and we're all falling into it.
Well, we have discussions to take place.
Right, but
Go ahead.
So I think emotions run high for lots of reasons, but the public is here because they're concerned about their property. They're concerned that there are wetlands on their property. I'm not included in 123 and 125. But
I'm sorry, can you state your
127.
name and address for the record?
Christina Johnson, 127 Milwaukee Avenue.
Thank you so much.
So at 127, I do have wetlands. At 127, I have incurred a lot of water pouring down from that area and have had to dig ditches and drains and other things. So there's a concern, and I think Michelle is concerned. I think these people are concerned. I'm concerned. I'm sure there are other people concerned that already we have issues on our property prior to anything else going on in such a big plan above where it's all going to drain down on my property.
Right, and our job is to
I,
educate.
I know you have a
No,
concern
my
here,
job is
but I
to-
have a concern as
No,
well.
Mr. McManus, if I may, and then you can feel free to
Sure.
jump in and correct
So
me if you would like to. So, part of what our commission's job is to regulate water coming off of the property and making sure that it is, correct me if I'm mistaken here, you could state it better than I can. Can you pull that statute up and read it?
I'd actually, Steve Trace, for the record, having sat on the Wetlands Board in Southbury, the jurisdiction of an inland wetlands commission is to regulate activities in wetland or watercourse boundaries and within defined upland review areas for any potential adverse impacts on the resource, which is the wetland or watercourse.
Yes,
That's the
and
short
I'm
version.
referring to
Direct
something
adverse.
I understood. And if you would please allow me, Dave knows what I'm asking him to read.
Yes, so your charges as are listed in Connecticut General Statute, section 22A-38, 22A-36 as amended from time to time, have been adopted by the Wetlands Commission, the town of Bethel in order to, one, protect the citizens of Bethel and the state by making provisions for the protection, preservation, maintenance, and use of inland wetlands and watercourses by A, minimizing their disturbance and pollution, B, maintaining and improving water quality in accordance with the highest standards set by federal, state, or local authority, C, preventing damage from erosion, turbidity, or siltation, D, preventing loss of fish and other beneficial aquatic organisms, wildlife, and vegetation, and the destruction of natural habitats thereof, E, deterring and inhibiting the danger of flood and pollution, F, protecting the quality of wetlands and watercourses from the conservation, economic, aesthetic, recreational, and other public and private uses and values, and G, protecting Bethel's and the state's potable freshwater supplies from the dangers of drought, overdraft, pollution, misuse, and mismanagement.
So when Pat, who's not with us tonight, keeps referring back to, I believe, that section, he's talking about the flooding aspect of it, which I think also is what you are speaking to, and other members of the public that are here tonight, that part of making sure that any activities that are happening on the site don't directly impact the wetlands, to speak to what you were saying, absolutely, and also don't contribute to flooding.
Correct.
Okay.
Stormwater, Steve Trinkus for the record, stormwater management is under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as engineers, we design our practices to address water quality and peak rate attenuation as required by the regulations.
Yes, and that is something that we often discuss and have as a part of our regulation
If it's
process.
if it's within your upland review, yes, you do, absolutely. If it's outside that, then it's plain zoning.
You're welcome.
Did I?
You did. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. All right. So again, before I close public comment, speak now, and forever hold your peace or until our next. Yes, we're good. All right. And now I would be happy to open the floor to discussion from our commission members. I know that Nico, you have some stuff that you would like to address to our applicant representation.
Yeah, just to clarify that the reason for any sort of line of inquiry coming from me is just to take in all of the information provided by the public, the applicant, the site walk, everything we have concerning the site, with the wetlands and hydrologic regime of the site in mind, to do our task to, prevent just what Dave just read, protect against flooding, erosion, protect safety, the wetlands resource, health of the wetlands themselves, et cetera. And with as far as my line to clarify a question was going, my whole wanting to identify where things are on the map was just, and in the site of the topography of the site in the hill, is to know, okay, well, water flows downhill, and these people who are talking live uphill and across the road from this property. The wetland that we found that was flagged at 125 Milwaukee Avenue is right, just down the hill, and the property in between is the south side of 9 Putnam Park Road. Their property is in between these two situations that we have issues with groundwater, right? So that's clearly now stated on the record. The maps show it. We have public testimony.
Well, what we have from the
And
public
that's why
is
I'm
some.
concerned with anything going on.
I'm
So
sure,
if
well,
I-
you don't have to
so if I
justify
have
your
any-
concerns.
So if I have any questions about the hole that's being asked to be filled, to bring it back to that, which is why the applicant is here,
Yes.
it is within regards to that broader hydrologic regime, albeit if, you know, we have no site plan that shows what exactly where things are, even where the property line is. I didn't see flags off the property line when we were there.
The property lines are on the map.
And yeah, well,
Yes,
it
we
wasn't
didn't see
flagged
any
in the
flagging
field,
when we were
and
out
which is
there.
strange, but so it's important to know that this is all going on. So we can't even say if it's within or without our 100-foot, you know, designated upland review area. But we do have provisions in the state statutes that say that if there is water flow on or off of a site beyond the stated 100-foot upland review area, that we have a duty to act and to understand that and to protect those wetland resources. It's all in the regulations from the state. It's there.
No disagreement. Downgrading wetland is not being affected now, nor will it be affected later. Again, all
2x2 area poorly drained soil.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out if there's a broader hydrologic regime underground that is an issue to
It's a
public health and
2x2
safety
area though.
because of the septic. So
Yeah.
my question is,
It's a
can the
2x2
septic, can the area, can the proposed development hold, safely hold
But we're not
the
talking,
septic effluent? I know we're not talking about that
we're
now.
talking about a 2x2 area.
And I just need to know, I guess, before I can make a decision on that, then the 2x2 area, how that potentially does or does not play in with this broader
It's a
hydrologic regime that we're
2x2
seeing crossing the
let
property.
me digress as
Underground,
much as I
it's
don't,
it's
because I don't want to,
This
but
the perched water table and
the,
Yeah, but
you know what, we need to figure this out.
we dug a bunch
We
of
all
test
need to figure
pits
it out.
in that area. The hard pan was between 23 and 36 inches below grade. The public health code is 18 inches to hard pan to be deemed suitable for a septic. So we have 5 inches plus of additional separation. So the area is suitable. It's no different than any other lot, quite honestly, along this section of Putnam Park, which are all unwell and septic for the most part. So it's common. These systems would all be in select fill. They are elevated above the ground because of the code requirements. And I have designed hundreds of systems in similar soils that have lasted 35, 40 years, as long as I've been in practice, with no adverse impacts whatsoever.
Yeah. So ultimately, that's what I'm trying to figure out, is just to confirm for me and for the public and for our commission that there can be no, in times of increased stormwater in that area, that there can't be mixing, or taking of that sewage effluent
No.
into that groundwater.
The original
I'm really-
plan,
I'm
the
concerned
septics
about
were in
that.
the northeast corner of the site, the stormwater was in the southeast corner of the site, never for the two to be uphill, downhill of each other. If the Planning and Zoning Commission approves a modified plan, the septic system is going up in the northwest corner, right along the frontage of Putnam Park Road, so not even down in the site. It would be pumped up to that area with the units moving downhill.
So do you understand my concern?
Yeah.
And you're willing to assuage it by
Just the
describing
septics,
those layers, the minimum
Yeah.
distances to hard pan. and then
we're
above for the
exceeding
septic
it. Technically at 23 inches, I could put my bottom of my system 3 or 4 inches into the existing grade. I'm not doing that. I have the bottom of my system on grade, so I'm providing a minimum 23-inch separation to groundwater where the code only requires 18. So, but I've designed
I'm
many
having
of
trouble
these. in
picturing the
hard pan.
flow, the groundwater, like the flow.
Septic effluent flow on a gravity system. Quite honestly, I'll use my own house as an example. I have hard pan soils. My house was built in '89. It's a fill package. It's about 2 feet of sand out there. There's 210-foot long rows of standard leaching trenches and a 50-foot row. When I purchased the house in 2016, so the septic system was 2006, so it was 17 years old at that point. The family that we bought from raised 5 kids in this house, from infant to college age. When I did the inspection of the system, the first row is the only row of the 3 that had seen effluent. The flow into the first row was a 1/2 inch deep. The second row was bone dry. No effluent in 17 years had even gotten to the second leaching system row. So these systems work exceedingly well. They're designed on a very conservative basis under the code. Under the health code, the sizing criteria are still based on having 5-gallon flush toilets. As we all know, they're 1.5 gallons now. So septic systems today are way oversized for the water usage. They're sized at 150 gallons per bedroom. The reality is you're using 75 to 80 gallons per bedroom. So they're extremely conservative, and that's why they last extremely long periods of time. It's not uncommon to find a septic that will last 40 to 50 years in soils like this because it's built up in sand. That's what we do, and they work very, very well.
And it just stays there? It doesn't go with
It
storm water?
slowly, it seeps out. What happens in a septic system?
What happens with the rain events?
The rain, you have topsoil, there's a slope over the system, so, rainfall, some of it may infiltrate a little bit, but some of it runs off because there's a slope to it. In a septic system, is the effluent in a gravity system goes in, to the system, it migrates to the bottom of the trench because the trench is level. What occurs over time is what's called a biomat. It's bacteria in the soil that, eats the nutrients in the effluent.
You're in the leaching system.
In the leaching system itself,
Okay.
between the stone and the soil. And over time, this biomat starts on the bottom of the trench and goes up the sidewalls. And the bacteria over time is what actually, what we call a slime layer, actually controls the flow of effluent from the trench into the surrounding soil. So it lets it out very, very slowly. And the treatment occurs within the biomat. It also occurs, these systems are never deeply underground. They're only about 6 inches under the topsoil. So you get a lot of water is evaporated via the top of the system. Phosphorus is held within the soil within 5 feet of a leaching trench. Nitrogen and bacteria and viruses, move through the soil into that loam layer above the hard pan. And again, the loam layer is a biologically active soil layer, and the treatment occurs within those soil layers. And when you're, 25, 30 feet down grading of a septic system, the water's pretty much clean. I wouldn't want to drink it, but it's clean, from a septic standpoint. That's how well these systems work. And they have been around for 100 years, systems like this. The code only came in the early 70s. And I will tell you, having done repairs over the years, there were systems built in the 50s that were put into hard pan soils like this, into the actual hard pan. And yet those systems lasted 30 years. Under the code today, they never should have, but they do. Mother Nature is, quite honestly, extremely forgiving with this. But in 40 years of practice, I have never had a failed septic system that I've designed. So, good.
Any more questions?
No, maybe later. What do you got?
Kevin, did you have any questions that you wanted to address to the applicant's representatives tonight?
In all honesty, no. I believe that everything that needed to be addressed was addressed in excruciating depth, to be completely honest, in this case, especially for the issue that's at hand. But I have nothing unanswered. Everything's been answered 7 times over for me, to be honest. So don't pardon my silence, but I am here. I am listening and being active.
Okay, I have a few questions that came to mind while we were having the discussion. So there's been several references. I'm going back to your 2x2. There have been several references to a pool that used to be on site. Now that we've had the opportunity to walk the site, I had some questions that came to my mind while we were there. I understand that there was some debris left over that Mr. Draper has excavated, some vinyl and perhaps some structural. We were able to see some, I don't even know what they are, whether they were I-beams or some other kind of metallic supports that are embedded in the ground. I don't know what any of that is for. So I'm curious to know why we think it was a pool, when we think the pool was there, when we think the pool was removed. What are we basing that on?
Mr. Draper took a dumpster or more of pool debris out of there.
Okay.
So there was a pool there. Above ground pools have a metal ring on the bottom. Generally the sidewall is a thin aluminum. It's a corrugated aluminum with a vinyl liner inside of it that came over the top with a clamp. That's pretty much what they were. They did have supports outside of it, kind of little angled I-beams outside to keep the aluminum, because the aluminum was like this. It was very flexible. And basically that you filled it with water and it just, the I-beams held the water in place and you had a pool. But he took 1 or 2 dumpsters of pool debris out of there after we, before we did the soil testing, which was a year ago, August.
Okay.
So that's,
So you're basing that on the debris removal
yes.
that
We had
was.
no idea when it was built or when it became dysfunctional.
I'll even go else, forget about the pool. It's clearly a man-made feature. It's not Mother Nature. Didn't build this little depressional area that you saw.
So that's where I'm going with this,
It's
Mr.
not, yeah,
McManus.
it's not man-made. I mean, it's not in Mother Nature.
Well, I don't know what it was, but I understand.
Yes.
I'm not questioning your expertise at all. And we've done a few site walks
Yeah.
together, and I think that you know that I respect your
Sure you do.
expertise.
And I appreciate that.
But I'm always up for learning new things.
Right.
So when we were walking that site and we were exploring that 2x2 depression, it occurred to me that that didn't look like the site for a pool because it was not level by any means. And the 2x2 depression is clearly the lowest point of that, but there was a lot of variation in the topography there.
Right.
And as a homeowner, if I were going to put in a pool, which I'm not, I don't see how that happens in that area because it wasn't flat at all.
But it was, but it wasn't a fully erected pool and then taken down a day ago. It's been probably sitting there for, I don't know, 30, 40 years.
Sure. But then I'm curious about why that depression would form right there in that spot rather than in a
Well, there was a
different
more,
way.
if you remember right, the lowest part is
Yep.
where we found the poorly drained.
Right,
say,
right.
2x2 area. Then it sloped up and then flattened.
And kind of rolled around a bit.
But who knows what that property looked like 50 years ago?
I know, wouldn't it be great if we could go back in
I'd
time
love
and
to.
take a look and
But,
answer
but
all
I'm
these
saying, forget
questions?
about the pool.
There were no trees.
We got a 2x2 area that has a wetland soil profile that I
Right,
found. The
right.
rest of it did not. All this stuff, I checked it and it was not, it was an upland profile, if you will. And, so it still comes down to the same conversation of an area in that sort of environment, sort of an urban environment, if you will, surrounded by development roads. And I see a 2x2 area that I can easily jump over. I can easily straddle
I
it.
know.
I'm
I
walking
can't
right-
easily
I'm
jump
walking-
over it, Mr. McManus.
Well, I'm walking right over it.
I
And
understand.
that's common mapping practices,
Sure.
and it's still a 2x2 area.
I hear you.
And
I
you can say, you
remember-
can call it a wetland. We're still here to plant. We're still here to ask for a permit for filling the 2x2 area.
Which is what we are
Yep.
discussing what you wanted to
So I don't
talk
really
about. Here
care.
I am, I'm bringing
Well, to
your
me,
conversation.
as a soil scientist, I don't care if it was a pool, a deck.
Well,
a
here's why I
shed.
care. Because one of the things that I believe Mr. Trinkus brought into, well, let me back up for a minute. At our last meeting, when we discussed this, we had the pleasure of hearing from Mr. Andrus, Attorney Andrus, who confirmed that it doesn't matter whether it's 2x2 or 12 inches by 6 inches or 40 feet by 70 feet.
Right.
It's still, there is no delineation under our purview of how big or small it needs
That's
to be in order for us to regulate it.
Betcha.
So, and I am a rule follower, Mr. McManus.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence here.
Sure.
And we are making sure that we address this appropriately. Okay, so I don't know what it is. I'm trying to figure that out right now. And we had confirmation that that's what we should do. So I'm curious about the pool because I want to know how that depression was made to the best of our abilities to figure it out, that hole, not the pool. And one of the things that Mr. Trinkus said earlier that stood out to me, and I would like to hear from you on this as our soil scientist in attendance tonight, was he said that over time, the quality of the soil or the profile of the soil, I don't remember your exact words,
Well,
would change.
if you have a hard pan, what I use the analogy of a test pit in hard pan, that if you don't backfill the test pit, groundwater in the loam layer above the hard pan will eventually fill in the test pit up to the hard pan layer. That's what happens. And if you don't backfill it and you let that water sit for years and years, the soils immediately around that become more saturated and can change from an upland to closer to a wetland. But
And
it
that's
takes-
exactly what I
it-
wanted to hear from Mr.
and-
McManus. And
so
if he
I'll
could
let him
please,
explain it further.
Sure.
thank you for bringing it to the table.
So
and
I'll start from the beginning. Wetlands in this state are soil-based. And our job as soil scientists is to determine within 20 inches if the soil has a chroma 2 matrix or not, greater than 50% of a chroma 2, which is essentially, just think of that as a gray layer. Gray, at least 50% of it is gray. The other half can be whatever. It can be all gray. And that has to happen within 20 inches. And the reason being is, if you were to dig in other areas, you'll see a nice yellow-brown color. I'm sure you folks have seen these colors on your sidewalks, or maybe looking at a test hole. And the reason it's that color is because irons adhere to the soil surface. So if you leave your rake out, it rains overnight, it rusts. So think of the soil as a rusty rake. So what happens to the soil is when the water table comes up and saturates it, and if this happens high enough and long enough, meaning with 20 inches and above, that iron goes in solution. And when the water table disappears, typically in the springtime when the trees come out, it takes that water table away. It leaves a gray background. And that's the color of the till. So when we come through with our soil augers and we dig down to 20 inches, that's what we're looking for. So forget about the pool, forget about everything. If you dug a test hole, if you dig a pool, you're that much closer to those gray colors. So if you dig here and then I dug in the middle, so when I dug on the slope, I didn't hit the gray color within 20 inches. It was probably at 23, 22, but it wasn't at 20. I got to the bottom, I had those gray colors that quote.
At what depth, if you could refresh my memory?
It was probably 15 inches, maybe.
Thank you.
I don't recall. I didn't write it down.
That's
I just
good enough
said,
for me
this
right now.
is, this is a wetland. This is a profile. And I just determined it to be a very small area in the lowest part. Now, again, when you dig, when you don't backfill a test hole or you dig a excavation in your backyard, you dig a shovel hole in your backyard and you have hard pan. And in the middle of the springtime, you're going to go out and you go in your backyard and you're going to look in the hole and you're going to see water in it. Is that a wetland? Or did Nico forget to fill in his little hole he was digging for his fence post? So that's where we come into play. And then
that's groundwater incursion?
It's groundwater on hard pan that would be there too if it was filled in.
Hard pan is otherwise known as a restrictive layer.
It's a restrictive layer. It's called a basal till. It's called a compact till. It's called a hard pan. It's called a restrictive layer.
So the water is going to travel over the surface of hard pan.
Yeah.
And it's going to infiltrate out.
And wherever that hard pan is in the profiles, typically where we find our wetlands. So the higher the hard pan is, that means the water table is going to be higher, longer.
Right.
The problem is there's
Seasonally.
no infiltration through hard pan. The water can't absorb.
It
through
does, but it's very, very slow.
in a storm event. It'll just.
But if it doesn't have the chroma 2 colors within 20 inches, it's a mildly well-drained soil. We have well-drained hard pan soils. They're called Paxton. That is the mapping. If you look up the mapping online, you call it Paxton, you're going to see it's a well-drained soil derived on glacial till that has a lodgement till hard pan.
So fancy.
So how?
We love our fancy
Look at all
ones, and
those
no one
big
understands
ones.
but us.
So
So we sound
maybe
really smart.
you kind of already answered this maybe, but like, so how do these restrictive layer hard pan soils weigh into
As the
the,
chairman
if
pointed out,
the septic can't
It
absorb
doesn't
through
have
them?
Doesn't matter. You'll see on hard pan, when we dig test pits, you'll see it, that changeover from the loam layer to the hard pan. We'll see that background gray color as Jim described. We will also see orange splotches
Called models.
called models, and that's an
Reduction
indication of the seasonal groundwater table. So that becomes our restrictive layer under the health code.
Mm.
And like, as an example, on the southern end of the site, we're going, down Putnam Park Road. When we dug test pits in that portion of the site, that hard pan was 15 to 16 inches down. And that's why the septics weren't over there, because the soils did not meet the code. They weren't a wetland soil,
They weren't
but
suited.
the restrictive layer was less
That's-
than 18 inches below the ground surface.
That's really important. I find that
So-
really
So-
Well,
important.
that's
to know.
why we do the deep holes.
So that's why.
I'm curious about the deep holes mostly. And
Well, that's
where
why we
and
do
how
it.
you chose. Yeah.
That's why we
What
do. We
we
have
do
to
is-
figure out the soil can do what we're asking it to do.
When we do soil
awesome.
testing for septic systems.
That's on that. That's across from 8. That's across from where she's talking
Well,
about.
we're down, well,
We're
we're quite
down
a bit
gradient and
downhill.
our soils,
And 125
it
across.
doesn't matter. Our soils indicate we have a hard pan at about 2 feet.
Where you want to.
Where
Where the
want to
septic
put the
system
septic
wants to go. Now, to finish your point, I mean, we have a divot in the landscape. I'm man-made. I see what you, well, again, I see a lot of things because this is what I do for a living. Just
And I
like-
see a lot of things because it's hard for me to walk on those kinds of
That's right.
surfaces.
And
So
it's
I
a
was
lot of
being-
this, right?
Mhm.
You know what that is? Fill.
Well, okay, or maybe it's erosion over
No, it's
time.
fill. It's not
Okay, so,
erosion.
so explain to me why you know that it's,
Because when you dig it out and you throw it down on the ground, you make these little humps. That's not erosion. Because where's the erosion come from? I didn't see any rivulets or gullies or.
well,
If
unless
you
I
had
missed,
that much erosion, you would have saw a massive gully going down that
Okay.
backyard. And you didn't.
so fair enough. So I think what some of our public members who, I'm just like, letting you finish your thought. So I think some of the public comment, well, all of the public comment was speaking to concerns about
Right.
how water moves through this general neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that it's problematic. And I don't even think that anyone up here would dispute that there's clearly some problematic water issues.
Sure.
The question is whether or not what we are here to discuss tonight is contributing to that problem, going to make it worse. Those are our,
Well,
I understand that that's not what
related,
you are
yeah.
saying.
Actually,
But that-
filling in the hole with select fill will provide a very porous median for that shallow groundwater to move from the uphill side of the depression to the downhill side.
Right.
Because sand and gravel has a very high permeability rate.
filling in the 2x2 area will not have an impact to anybody down on Milwaukee.
Right. And I think that it's probably true if they will allow me to speak for them, that the members of the public that are here with concerns are thinking about the broader perspective.
Right.
And that is a piece of what we need to discuss as the wetlands review, because it does have to do with water leaving the property and coming onto the property. And that's why we're having these conversations. And I believe, if you'll allow me to speak for you, and you can feel free to correct me if I misspeak, that what you are concerned about is whether or not there is groundwater flowing that has not been accounted for, that we need to.
It's just what you said. It's whether this is related. It's where the detestals and where the suitable soils are, the depth. I'm curious about all that.
Oh,
And we don't have the site plan, so
I
we're
can
not even
answer-
discuss the development.
I
yet,
can
so we
answer
need
that
an
as a
actual
soil science, and I'm gonna
site
let
plan.
Steve answer that as the engineer. I didn't see the back pits, but I saw the front pits. And those soils are suitable for what we're asking them to do.
Toward 58. The front
Along-
towards the
along
road.
the front.
Yeah.
But when we did the testing a year ago, August 23, Ryan from the health department came out. We had dug 13, 14 test pits. When I do soil testing on site, we start in one area and we do them every 30, 40, 50 feet, uphill, downhill. We test the whole area. I have the machine for half a day, so I make Swiss cheese out of the property. And we found the northeast corner of the site had suitable soils. The southeast corner did not have suitable soils, so the septics weren't over there. As the buildings are up closer to the road, we didn't test up near the road at all at that time. Ryan witnessed them, and again, I had them all logged. It was clear, you could see the restrictive layer in every one of the test pits. You could measure with a tape, so he witnessed all of those.
Yeah, this is all really good. I wish that, and I'm really grateful for your testimony and for your testimony and all the information that you guys have. And I also wish that we had some other member of the town or the health department or somebody, whoever, I don't know who pays for what. I'm not even like going to talk about that. I think it's.
Well, the health
developers
department is going to
that pay
investigate
for
the
stuff.
health department's angle of things, if that's what you're
Yeah.
getting at in terms of the septic.
The
Yeah.
health department, you know, has to sign
But I
off
have
on
a
Steve's design. If they
Before
don't
it comes to
sign off
us.
before
Before it
any.
comes
No, for planning and zoning, it's a conceptual plan showing
worried
that
about the water.
that the land is suitable for septic.
Right.
And then we also have a stormwater management system to meet the town's regulations.
Right. And that's
If-
what I
if-
would like
if-
to.
If
All
planning
of
and
that's
zoning
important
approves
to
the
me.
project, then there'll be a detailed septic design done for submission to the health department for review and approval of the plan and ultimately issuing a construction permit to install.
Like
it for
I
that
can't
system.
sign off as a wetlands commissioner on anything unless I know that it's safe for the public and the groundwater.
But
regime.
only if it's within the regulated area. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Well, or
it's-
if it impacts the regulated area.
Right.
No, the regulated area is the resource, not the 100-foot upland review area. The statute's clear on that. You're
Dave?
protecting adverse impacts, physical adverse impacts to the resource. The resource is a wetland or water course.
Yep.
It is
Or
not,
public health and
it
safety.
is not, it is not the 100-foot upland review. It's not the
You
100-foot
have to
upland
make a
review.
decision.
Let me pause the arguing for a moment. Dave's going to pull up the actual statute, and then we don't need to argue about it.
I
for
just
like-
know that
It's
to
a
promote
resource.
I'm going to pause the argument, and Dave's going to pull up the statute.
So
Part of our
the
criteria.
No,
re-
I'm going to pause.
The resource that this commission is designated to protect is the regulated wetlands area. And or anything that is considered, let me rephrase, excuse me, a regulated wetland area. So a watercourse, a wetlands, a vernal pool, anything that is defined as a regulated wetland area, that is what this commission is charged with reviewing to ensure there are no direct adverse impacts. You know,
Whether or not-
without, right. If the commission, how to say this, if the commission believes that there is a resource that is beyond the regulated upland review area that would have a direct impact to the regulated wetland area, they can ask for additional information. But there has to be a correlation for why that request is being made.
Where is that? Where is that? And that's what I'm looking for in a regulation. I
Right.
know I've read it. I
Mhm.
know it exists.
No. You
You know, to say that water doesn't, flow beyond 100 feet, it's very dependent on the slope, the type of soils that the water's running through.
But everything is designed to the types of soils that we identify in the field.
And so I want to talk about the stormwater management stuff because I think that it's important to get it on the record so that the members of the public that are here have an understanding of how those
They
things.
will hear that at P and Z.
I
gets a
understand,
modified
Mr.
plan.
Jenkins, but I'm running this meeting and I want to have
Well,
it
again,
on the
I'm-
record that these things are going to be addressed through the process.
They will be addressed through the
Understood.
process in accordance with the town's regulations, but
Understood.
as there is no site plan now, there is no stormwater management system to discuss.
Understood. Did you find?
I'm still looking for it, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Yeah, I've been looking for it too.
They're generally, under that requirement, Wilton, I know, has a 100-foot upland review, and they have language in their regulations, which go beyond the statute, that allows them to look at activities outside the 100-foot. But there must be a probable, not potential, a probable adverse physical impact on that resource to allow them to look beyond the 100-foot upland review. That's in the Wilton regs. Many towns actually do not have that language in there.
Yeah, we're,
So,
I did a job in Richfield and they tried to extend beyond 100 feet and they got shut down.
Ridgefield.
Did a project. And you just can't say, I want to go beyond it just because you
Want to.
I think
understand.
the state
But we're-
statutes do say that we can do that.
You got to have a reason. You just can't say because.
Yeah.
I feel like doing it.
it's a
No, but the
problem.
reason is public health and safety.
Well,
It's
no,
Well,
it's got to be a probable.
Probable
adverse-
cause. We have no probable cause here.
Probable adverse physical.
The
impact.
filling of a 2x2 area gives no probable cause that the people in Milwaukee are going to be impacted.
Right.
Thank you for playing secretary tonight and following up.
Oh, no, it's
Appreciate
okay.
your input and your patience, everybody. Do we have any input on lines? Anybody? Just people here.
No, you'd see their hands up. That's how I knew that Ms. Leon wanted to speak. Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
Nobody from the health department could join us today.
Uh,
Nobody from the town.
It's not relevant.
We do have someone from the town. We have Mr. Carter with us, our first
No, it's
selectman.
not
Did you have
relevant,
questions for
Donika.
him that
We're
you
just
wanted
trying to
to
fill
bring
a
up?
small little
Oh,
2x2 area. It's not relevant. There's no septic system that the 2x2 area is near. You know what I mean?
Right.
We don't have a septic system. We have a 2x2 area.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I'm,
You know what I mean?
I'm thinking ahead toward the.
Yeah,
future
but
projects.
you gotta keep it to the 2x2 area. And how that's gonna impact,
But I want to make sure that this comes.
how's that gonna impact, whether we can do it? Or is, you gotta impact it, whether filling of that's gonna have an adverse impact on and off the site.
Roger that, but I want to make sure that this project beyond tonight comes before us when it becomes time to build. Based
So
on
if
this
it's gonna-
other.
If
the other factors.
Anything falls within your purview.
That's the way the laws, whether
Yeah,
you agree
so-
with it or not,
yeah.
that's what the law is.
If we fall it outside your purview, then we're not the only one that has, you don't regulate every single project in town because
Yeah.
some sites have no way.
I would look at this point for a little legal counsel help from either Ms. Attorney Anders or my esteemed colleague.
He's looking something up for us right now.
But,
What question did you want to ask to Attorney Anderson?
No, just what we were discussing, whether where are the legal language lies regarding the state of one, you know, whether it's within our purview, 100-foot upland review area, you know, I just want to make sure.
I'm
that-
not finding
I
the
understand.
section I'm not finding the language that you're referring to, just from me trying to go through the
Scanning.
scanning the wetlands regulations. You can always see if Attorney Anders may have insight on that in the interim while I do that.
Do you understand the question, Mr. Attorney Anders?
He's muted.
You're muted, sir. We can't hear you. You're muted, your microphone.
My apologies. Yeah, my understanding is you're asking the extent of your jurisdiction, and it's within definitional terms. Your regulations have a definition of regulated activity, and that's defined as any operation within or use of a wetlands or watercourse. And then it says, or upland review area as defined in these regulations involving removal or deposition of material. So that brings you within the upland review area. And your question is, well, can we go beyond that? If you read further, it just says, and then there's a condition, or any, and then it says obstruction, construction, alteration, or pollution of such wetlands or watercourses. So I've heard it taking the position that pollution of a wetland or watercourse itself is by this definition is a regulated activity, and that can presumably be beyond 100 feet. So I think if you're just parsing out the language, you can do that. That said, most commissions usually use the regulated activity as area, and then it's on the commission's burden to show that there's and there could be, you can imagine doing activities on the top of it. If there's steep slopes involved, it could be beyond that, and you could say this could be pollution. So I think there is theoretically, under just reading the term as defined in your regulations, which mirrors the statute, you can look beyond that, but it's not usually done.
So,
I'd like to, sorry, if I may say something, Madam Chair.
Yep. Please.
Sure.
I am the first and biggest advocate of trying to do right by the environment and my neighbors. However, pushing outside the perspective of the issue that is at hand and extending it past the regulated upland review area sets a precedent that could be dangerous for us. It needs to be taken heavily into consideration. It creates a course of action that could come back into our review. So we need to make sure that we have very hard ground to stand by if we want to push that limitation. And in my personal opinion, it's not a very smart idea to do in this circumstance. That being said, the more information we can gather, it's always to our benefit and to our neighbors' benefit, so they can all understand what is happening here. However, we're kind of stretching the bounds of our abilities, because if you want to go with an extremist platform of the statement and the theory at hand, unless you're at ocean level, there's always going to be a downstream wetland from anything that we review. That's an extreme version of what we're looking at here, because I know that we're trying to do right by our neighbors and the wetlands. But remember that our decision to pursue this further is going to set a pretty hefty precedent on everything else that might come in front of us. So I want everybody to take that into consideration when they're thinking about all this information and the lengthy conversation we had for a small request.
yes. Thanks, Kevin.
More, I'd also I'd make the offer that this application is approved, and if the Planning and Zoning Commission approves the modification, when we do a brand new site design, we will provide a copy of the documentation to this commission, even though we're not going to be in the regulated area, so you can see the full plan. I'd be willing to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy.
Oh, even if we're
I think
outside.
that's kind, and I think that's kind, helpful, and more than is necessary. And that would satisfy me personally, but I'm only one member of this board.
So-
I'm just going to respond quick to Kevin. Like, I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate the importance of what you're saying and what the consequences are. potentially, as you say, set precedent. I don't think we should be afraid of those terms or the reality that follows with that. I think we need to do what's best for the landscape and the people who live in it, the wetlands in this case.
So what
And
we're-
water does flow downhill.
Fine.
And
Agreed.
Water-
And I just want to say,
Water
one thing that
does-
I mentioned while you're making this statement is that doing it in an ad hoc situation like this might not be the best place to set such precedent. It might be something that we would want to discuss and create or reestablish legislation around a precedent that we want to set. So that way there's actually verbiage and we're not doing it ad hoc. That's something I've
we're
committed.
just having a discussion here, and it's good to do that. We're doing it on the applicant's time, and I'm thankful for their time.
Okay.
And we have to make sure that the effects of the development that we're proposing to accept or deny, as an application, don't have deleterious or negative downstream effects, as is our charge in our regulations.
So I think Dave found what we were looking for. My board is going to clarify.
I found something, but I don't think it is immediately useful. And I apologize for that. I believe there is some case law that may speak to the question that Mr. Jordan is asking. And I think it is worth reviewing what that case law says and whether or not anything from the opinions from, if I'm using that term correctly, from the results of those cases can be extrapolated for the purpose of this application. If so, if the commission could entertain the opportunity for staff to come back with that information at the next regular meeting, I'd be happy to do that.
Sounds like something valuable that we would want. Yes, Nico?
Of course.
Yeah. Kevin, you on board for that?
I just want to make one quick statement. 2 hours and 11
I know.
minutes on a 2x2 area.
I know. So if I can address
Agreed.
that, all right? So we are, I understand that commission and public has a lot of concerns about water movement and flow and flooding and concerns. But what we really need to focus on for tonight is not the broader picture of all of the rest of the potential things that could happen if there's potential development that gets approved by planning and zoning, because water flow issues will have to be addressed by a stormwater management system as a part of those plans in order to make sure, and it is a public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so public will be invited to come and participate in that and review the documentation that is brought. I just think I want that on the record so that those who are in attendance understand that the reason that I'm trying to bound in our conversation tonight is because, as keeps being mentioned by our applicants, we're here to talk about a 2x2 roughly area of water. That's all we are here to review tonight, even though there are other things that people want to talk about. So my question is to Nico and to Kevin in a moment, do you feel like filling in the well, first of all, do you feel like that 2x2 area that we are referencing tonight is a valuable environmental resource that we need to be aggressively protecting?
You're asking me what I think?
I am asking you what you think.
You want to ask Kevin first or me? I have been in agreement with Mr. McManus since he repeatedly explained to us in what in his professional opinion is I think it is relevant that it's man-made, even though we had discussed maybe that if it was a natural thing, I would think we would be having more discussion about it. Anyway, that it's a man-made wetland inclusion and otherwise upland mapping unit, former farmland that was cleared maximum of 40
So
years
do you
ago.
feel like it's an important environmental resource that we need to be aggressively protecting?
I think the hydrology of the site in general. and
I'm talking about that
groundwater
2x2,
and the
just that spot.
matters.
Just that spot. Do you feel like that spot is an environmental resource that we need to be aggressively protecting? Because that's what they're here to talk about tonight, is whether or not we allow them to fill that spot.
Only in any capacity that it may or may not, and I need more input on this in the future meeting, have any relationship to the groundwater and construction that gonna happen on
So
that
we can't
site.
talk about the
And we don't
construction yet.
have a plan, a site plan or construction plan in front of us.
Because
So I
we're not
really can't-
reviewing that. We're just talking about them filling that spot.
Right.
So that's
You
all we
have
can
to-
talk about.
You can't, the attorney can chime in, you can't talk about what ifs. Right now, there isn't a what if, right? The only
Yeah,
what
I'm
if
just trying
we
to
have is,
understand the connect, any possible.
there is no
But we
connection.
can't
connection.
investigate all
Whether
those
filling a
connections
two
right now.
by two area of disturbed
Got it.
wetland is gonna be an impact or not,
Right.
that's your decision you need to make.
If you don't mind, Mr.
Personally, I
McManus,
have an opinion about that. I'm not gonna share it this time because that.
I'm just
that
asking
happened.
you a direct question, and it's just a yes or no. That 2x2 patch, not the rest of the potential developments, not the septic, not the off-site wetlands that is within our, well, that
Do I
the
have to render a
radius of-
decision about this?
you don't have to
right now?
render a decision
Okay,
on
I
anything.
defer
I'm
to you.
asking you a question. You can defer, but I'm
Yeah.
asking you whether that, I'm not asking you whether you think there are larger impacts. I'm asking you whether this little spot that they are talking about tonight
Right.
is an environmental resource that you think we should be aggressively protecting.
I understand the question. Do I have to make a
You don't ever have to
determination
answer.
on this? Are we
Can I-
at the decision making point
May,
now?
may I
Well, you
briefly
need-
interrupt, Madam?
Of course you can.
Okay.
Is it tonight, the night we're closing
Well,
the hearing?
no, 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 no,
Not at all.
So let me throw this question. While you have the applicants here, does the commission need any additional information to address the regulated activities as they have been proposed by the applicant?
So as in, if they fill that spot, what is the environmental impact?
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get
Does,
to.
well,
I'm good.
does,
with-
does,
with what the
does,
applicant presented.
does the commission need any additional materials supplemented by the applicant for the commission to render a decision on that activity?
Thank you. Do you,
No, I'm good. I don't need any further discussion on it.
okay, Kevin, the same question to you.
Absolutely not.
Okay, okay. I do not either.
So if this commission feels that it has what it needs to deliberate on this application, you at your discretion, of course, I would hold for a consensus.
Of course.
You can close the public hearing tonight for this inland
Because we will
wetlands
continue
application.
to deliberate.
So,
Yeah.
so if you want to get anything else from the applicant, keep the hearing open. If you don't, and you feel that they have given you what you need, then you can close. Okay? And, depending on which way you go and how much time you may need to deliberate, whether or not staff may have some kind of draft material ready for the commission at their next regular meeting, you can direct that. I would advise that you make a motion to add, 9 Putnam Park Road to a work session on tonight's agenda if you're so inclined to do that. Otherwise, you have, I believe, a period of 35 days from when you close a public hearing to render a decision. If I'm getting that correctly, Tyler.
So
No, it's 35, David, you're correct.
It is 35?
After the close of a hearing, the Wetlands Board has 35 days to
Render a
render a
decision.
decision.
Okay. So,
we can either close the discussion tonight or not close the discussion tonight. And I have a question for you. Before I try the minds of the other members, we have a small representation of our board here tonight. I have a question for Kevin, quickly. Kevin, I know that, were you able to review all of the materials in the drive and the recordings and such before tonight's meeting in order to make sure that you were up to speed on the discussions and sidewalk?
right. So the site walk will get posted to the town's YouTube
Gotcha.
channel.
Thank you. Right. I forgot that wasn't up
Right.
yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was not up there. I would have taken a look. There wasn't any there in excess of what we have initially discussed.
Yeah.
Really,
Okay.
on there to review. So I didn't double down on the stuff that I already looked at. And I figured if there was anything of pertinence that needed to be brought up from the site walk, it would have done so, or we would have discussed, so you could share with me.
Okay.
There wasn't anything to see there.
Thank you.
So, and if I'm recalling correctly, Mr. Seaman, you were present at the last Wetlands Commission meeting when this application was accepted.
Yes, sir. Yes, I was.
Okay. So,
I know we're not rendering decisions.
No,
tonight
no, no, no,
anyway.
no, but in terms of making sure people are up to speed, he was at the last meeting, so. You know, he has just as much information as you do between,
Despite the fact that he wasn't able to attend the sidewalk.
right, that's the only thing that he does not have. And in staff's experience, as long as a commissioner before they go into discussion or deliberation, as long as they say, hey, I've reviewed all the materials, you know, including a site walk, you know, before they render a decision, that's really all you need for the record.
Okay.
So if Mr. Stephen feels he doesn't need any more testimony or documents from the applicant, you know, it doesn't matter if he hasn't seen the site walk recorded. at that
Okay.
point.
So then to clarify, what we can do from this point forward is we can table the discussion and continue it in a future meeting if we wish to. We can close the discussion and be ready to render it. Just go ahead.
But yeah, you can discuss, well, you know, as Matt has previously pointed out, it's now 2 hours and 20 minutes that we've been here. So, if you want to go into a work session to discuss this application tonight, that's at your discretion. I think at this point, you need to decide whether or not you need anything else from the applicant.
Which I think we just asked and nobody said that they needed more
Okay,
information from the
so
applicant.
does the commission have a consensus that they want to close the public hearing?
Yes.
Kevin?
I'm
Did-
okay with closing public hearing. I do have all the information needed to continue.
Okay, I'm also comfortable with doing that. So we need a motion.
Well,
Or no.
as long as you have a consensus from everybody, you can close. the
No,
public
no, you need a vote, David, to close the hearing. You need a commission vote.
Danielle needs to somebody needs to make a
Motion
motion.
is seconded and you vote on it. to
Is it
close the
gonna hurt
hearing.
anything?
It's not gonna hurt anything.
Great. Does somebody want to make a motion to close the public hearing portion of this application?
I, Kevin
Okay.
Seaman, would like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Aye. Okay, so the motion passes.
Thank you.
So the
Thank you.
public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Okay. So we will then.
Thank you, members of the public.
We need to have a motion.
well,
You can stay, you don't have to leave.
No, I just had, photos. I believe you asked me for photos or videos of the water when we spoke on the phone. You said, get your pictures together.
yeah,
Pictures.
if you want to
So
send those,
what should
if
I
you,
do with
if,
those?
send, I will give you my email address.
Okay.
I don't have a business card on me, I'm afraid. But
Would you like to adjourn for?
no, I'll just
Not adjourn.
take a recess
Take a
now.
recess.
I will write my email address.
And I'll send it.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And is there a way I can be included? Because I am the next house, but I'm downhill where I don't think they measured, but I'm closest to them, as you can see in the photo.
I'm not sure what you
Water
mean by
damage.
included.
To be included, well, it's my excavator who sent me the letter and said, you might want to know about this.
Oh, you weren't on the mailing
No.
list? I'm not sure about
Because
that.
it was 123, 125, even though I'm 127, I'm closest
So,
to
so
the house
on-
downhill.
unfortunately, our statutes direct us to only send a butters notices to properties that abut or are within 100 feet of the applicant's property. That's why you do not receive an abutters notice in the mail.
It's not 500, David, are you sure?
It's not 500. The 500 is for,
Let's see.
notifications to towns. That's what that 500 is for. So that's why you did not get a notice. But if you want to, follow, you know, whatever discussion that this commission may have on this application at their next meeting, or the discussions that the planning and zoning commission has for their respective meetings, you're welcome to attend.
Well, I'd have to find out about it.
They're all publicly posted
So,
on
so
the town
they're
website.
all posted on the Bethel Town website. They're held on the second and fourth, planning and zoning commission meetings are held on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. And wetlands are held on the fourth Monday.
November 25th is our next meeting.
And the planning and zoning commission's meeting, next meeting, as I mentioned to this gentleman, is November 12th.
But- Ma'am, you can submit and you should all of your information
Well,
regarding this
Okay, I will.
project to staff.
right,
This is the land use office.
right,
And he'll
but-
take it to the right place.
right.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because I've been to the state, I've been to, I've been around here, I guess I just missed, the wetlands part.
Understood.
Dave
Okay.
McCon, you're the guy, right?
I'm the inland wetlands agent.
Take all the info.
Is that who
and-
you are? So I'll send you this, and you can
Yes.
see that house, I mean, I don't know how they did measurements, but
No, I understand. I know
Well,
exactly
the
where you
water,
are.
the water course flows down and
Right
concentrates
in my
water at you in
yard.
your backyard.
because
Yeah.
I'm the only one.
You're at the bottom.
right
Are you
at
at the stream? Are you at the Wolf Pit Brook yet or no? Are you at the main river or are you above the river still? You're not on the river.
Right.
The Wolf Pit
That's
River.
just,
Yes, I
You're
don't
up.
really know what the Wolf
it
Pit
doesn't,
River is.
we're good.
It's the
but it
river
feels
that
like a
gathers the
river.
water.
That's
We
all I
hope that
know.
you will come and continue to participate, and thank you for being here
Yes,
tonight.
thank
Thank
you
you
all.
all for coming and
Thank you.
participating. We appreciate it. Okay, do we have more questions for Attorney Andrus for tonight? Do we want to cut him loose so he can have his evening, or do we want to keep him around?
Nope, I'm
Wait.
good.
It's up to you.
What else are we just, oh, we are going to get an update on, is Attorney Andrus involved in
No,
Rockwell? No,
No.
okay,
you would not need him for that discussion.
okay, do you need to stick around for anything further?
I
You are welcome to stay, Attorney Andrews, and if you would like to take off, you are welcome to go. We so appreciate your input here. It is so valuable to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume you're not going to render a decision tonight, and I'm saying that even if you reach consensus to direct Dave to draft a resolution, I'm saying that selfishly from the zoning perspective. There's still a lot to go on. You heard the applicant say from the zoning that they presented a conceptual plan. So there's got to be a lot more done, but the date of the zone, when wetlands renders a decision, triggers when zoning has to render its decision. They get 35 days after wetland renders its decision. So even if you reach a consensus, I would strongly suggest that you don't vote tonight. I don't think you were going to, but just and get a written resolution. Another reason for that is under the statutes, you have to submit a report, which is typically your decision, to the Planning Zoning Commission, and they're supposed to consider that as part of their deliberation. So it's good to have something in writing.
Attorney Anderson, can I ask you something?
Sure.
Nico here. Yeah, I just was kind of wanting to make sure that regardless of our decision on what the applicant for 9 Putnam Park Road brought before us this evening, to fill that small former swimming pool wetland area, whether if we decide to let them do that, to keep that separate as they really, really want to do, does that all of a sudden make there are greater issues at play here regarding wetlands and water courses and drainage and septic. And I want to make sure that we don't lose out. Will those come before us again or no?
It depends. The thing is all a little strange. Typically they submit a site plan. In sort of a generosity of spirit here, they never submitted a site plan. You usually don't consider applications that aren't complete. But what the proposal here is mainly, it's mainly the other issue is the septic issue, where you can put the septic, because a lot of times that drives the development when you have a lot that is, somewhat suitable and has areas where you can't put a septic, as Mr. Trinkhouse recommended. Finding an area to put both the primary and reserve septic areas is pretty tight. And that sort of shapes how you develop the site, where you put the septics and how the thing is laid out. So I understood what they're trying to do. They sort of got to nail that down, and then they're going to build the other stuff around that, including the stormwater detention. So that they have just submitted a septic, and in the spirit of, this is an affordable housing application, of trying to get, listen to what the developer has to say. Those were the two issues, the wetlands issue, and it sounds like you're going to address one of them, and then the whole septic issue, and that's a whole separate thing with the health department. But if they got through that, you heard the applicant say, yeah, we're going to submit a detailed site plan, which is still going to be presumably part of, they have to decide that within the 35 days from whenever you render a decision. So there's a lot going on that we're trying to get done. But the answer is, yeah, if they submit a site plan, because, and it shows the stormwater, and they propose regulated activities as part of that, then yeah, they'll have to come back before you. It sort of depends how the layout ends up being shaped. You heard there's a part of the site that is within 100 feet, but now they're saying that they may not have to reach that area. So they may not have to do any grading or anything else in that, but who knows? I mean, it's sort of an open target. So yes, it could come back before you. And you heard the applicant say, yeah, I'll submit, whatever we submit to you, so you have it. But yeah, there may be another regulated activity, depending on how things shape out.
If I may just butt in real quick, just to cover the commission, I think it's worth them making a motion that they amend the agenda to include a work session to discuss this application. For 9 Putnam Park Road, for right now, for what you're doing right now.
Okay, motion to amend tonight's agenda to include a work session to discuss 9 Putnam Park Road.
Thank you. Second? I'll second it. Kevin?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I was gonna say,
We're just
in
making.
favor. Sorry.
Getting his
Yeah,
vote.
no, that's okay.
Okay, no, sorry.
Do you vote in favor of amending the agenda tonight, Kevin?
You guys want to stay for longer to discuss this more?
No, we're already doing it. I guess it's a technicality, I think.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
then yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. The second thing, if I may just butt in real quick, I'm sorry. It's only planning and zoning that's concerned about this, the application before them being an 8-3G application. That statute does not apply to this commission.
Right.
Okay. So
That's
I
correct.
just want to make sure that was clear for.
No, I'm just concerned about
Okay.
this neighboring testimony of the hydrologic regime and the stormwater management and runoff in that entire area. And I don't know if there's been septic issues reported or not in this meeting tonight, but like the whole thing kind of stinks and a little bit.
Well, we
And I
have
want
to
to make
be
sure
able
that
to
we don't miss,
factually back
that we
that
don't,
up.
but we don't play the wrong hand. If they just want this technicality for us to approve, I just want to make sure that us approving this little technicality of this in what I'm going to just call this tiny little 2 foot by 2 foot wetland inclusion, is like, seems like, I don't. It's almost
We
like a
are just
distraction.
approving
Maybe.
that.
I want to make sure it's not a distraction from the actual broader issue of how is the water behaving on both sides of Route 58, coming down from whatever that other road was, down the hill, across this property from 8 to 9 Putnam Park Road. 8 and 10 are having problems on the west uphill side. Then 9 is and 7, and then downhill to 123 and 125 Milwaukee, 127 Milwaukee down the hill. The water keeps getting concentrated down there. I want to make sure we don't miss anything.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not denying that any of those things may be in play, but they don't have, we don't know that any of those issues relate to filling this 2 by 2 spot.
Right.
Those issues were in existence for longer than for a very long time.
Okay.
And we would have, correct?
So
I just want to make sure we don't miss anything. That's all.
No. I
We'll get taken
understand.
advantage.
I understand what Nico's saying, and I guess
Because
the
maybe
way.
they're planning on us on their being outside of the 100 foot, 100 foot upland review area, so they don't have to come back before.
But they still have to mitigate stormwater through their stormwater management systems, and those are going to go before P and Z.
They don't have to talk to us about it.
They don't, because if it's not going to impact the wetlands, that's what
So-
our purview is.
So
All right, as long as you think P and Z understands well enough, they're going to study the stormwater flow down this hill.
So this is where while the applicants were here, if you wanted them to supplement the record with information to talk about groundwater hydrology with respect to what you're talking
He
about.
stated it himself. He's like, I grew up there. It sucks. All up and down Route 58. Mr. Trinkow said there is groundwater movement very close to the surface. He said it right at the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if you picked up on it. It's an issue in the area. That's all.
Right. But there has to be a correlation that.
I want to work with them to get it right.
I understood, but there has to be a correlation that any impacts that are associated with whatever the applicant wishes to ultimately do with the property, are going to adversely impact, off-site wetlands because there is a direct correlation that what they're doing is going to adversely impact the groundwater hydrology and thereby
I want to make sure that it doesn't.
By filling this hole.
Right.
No, this, yeah,
But
this.
that's what we're here to review, is to
No.
fill the hole.
I know.
But you're not talking
So-
about that. You're talking about all these other things, and that's why I'm bringing you back to it.
I just want to make sure we don't get played.
But
and
all
it
we
doesn't
can
come back
talk
to
about
us.
is filling the
Well,
hole. That's what.
I know, that's what they're counting on.
Right.
That's why they
But-
said
But
that
that's
we
what
just
the-
care about this 2 foot by 2 foot hole. Mr. Carter put it in his thing. It sounds ridiculous.
Right,
Everybody,
but-
they're like 2 foot by 2 foot. Ah.
But-
Yeah, I know.
You cannot control whether or not the applicant may or may not need to come back to you with a separate application.
Okay.
That's, if you want to add a
We clearly on the record,
Yeah.
identified an issue with the site, with that surrounding area. That's
Right.
all.
But
Right.
that's not
It's on the
under our-
record now.
Right, but an
There's
issue.
water issues there.
Right. But correlation isn't necessarily causation. There has to be,
They're involved. Their property is in the midst of it.
But
They
it,
have
Right,
to deal
filling
with
the
it.
hole
No,
would
no.
have to be
Right.
the thing that was impacting those problems. Yes, because that's what we're here talking about, is
closed-
can they fill the hole? So if filling the hole is going to make this problem worse
Are we
in some
deciding
way,
that?
no, we're having a work session and we're discussing.
Okay. I have
That's what,
nothing to discuss about the hole.
but that's what we're here to talk about. And you want to
So-
talk about like
Well-
larger,
so, if,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
no, please.
But, so, if the commission is so concerned about any impacts to, any off-site wetlands as a result of, activities that may take place within the on-site regulated upland review areas, you have the right to add to whatever decision you make as a condition of approval. If the applicant proposes to amend their application to include regulated activities, that they come back to the commission. And that's what Mr. Trinkus was alluding to, that we'll come back if we need to make that change.
Isn't that
But-
like the requirement though? We should
Right,
we
right,
really
right.
need to make
No,
Any
but
conclusions?
it's always good to reaffirm that for the record.
Okay.
Even if the regulations codify that, for lack of better words, it never hurts to have in the record. Okay. The other thing that I will say is, is if the commission really wanted more information to speak to that, then they would have kept the public hearing open. So,
I don't want
you're,
more information from that. They did what they wanted. They did and everything they did.
that's all the information that we can use to deliberate on this is what we have.
We have no other scientist who's going to weigh in on whether this hole and the water that's stuck in it has to do with this other hydrologic perched water table in Mr. Trinkus's
I'm not
words.
willing to spend, you gotta realize all that comes at a cost too, and that's a lot of cost for taxpayers to pay for a 2 foot by 2 foot.
We
hole.
have taxpayers to pay. I didn't say anything about that. It's, as far as I know, it's supposed to be the applicant that's.
Because
supposed
he
to pay for
did.
this stuff.
Mr. McManus did all of the soil testing. He said it right here on the record.
Why
tonight.
is one person, I am not comfortable with one person in this case. Why?
That's
I'm not
always what
necessarily
we do.
comfortable
We
with
never-
one person saying yes or no,
But
and
that's
that being the defining, we need a third party review,
for the whole to see if that's,
whatever it is, whenever we need it.
do you need it here for this tonight? Is this where you want to use that resource?
well, you can't now because the public hearing's closed.
Right. But
I was asking this last week as well,
I understand.
last month,
I understand.
nothing new.
Okay.
We got mentioned in a Board of Selectmen meeting last week for somehow like there was some miscommunication between us and the developer.
Right.
You know,
So-
unclear
so-
who's
so-
supposed to pay for what. The town clearly doesn't want to pay for anything. We have no budget. We have no authority. I understand, to decide on things, even though we do have a business, we have budget items. We pay $2,600 a month to this organization to advise us in all things wetlands.
Right.
We don't use that.
Right.
Hold on, why
It's-
don't you let Dave answer your question
That,
about,
that is all understood.
Mhm.
The reason why Mr. Carter discussed, that aspect to the commission's discussion at their most recent Board of Selectmen meeting, and Mr. Carter, you're more than welcome to, jump in if I'm, missaying this, at all. But, the commission made the commission verbally agreed for the town to provide, a service to figure out where an offsite wetland was. Okay.
And how
They-
far,
they-
specifically how far it was from their proposed limit of disturbance, I believe it was.
Mr. Jordan, if you don't mind, I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm happy to jump in there, Dave. I'm on the line.
Yeah, thank you.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so, when we were advised that.
Excuse me,
chime in or not?
I'm a little, are you an ex officio member? We closed the public hearing. I'm just concerned of,
I am an ex
Third party.
officio member of the board, yes,
okay, you can talk. That's,
yes.
I just don't want to.
No, I understand. I am an ex officio member of the board. That's the only reason I'm
Okay.
chiming in.
Absolutely.
So from the perspective of the Board of Selectmen, when that came before us, there was, number one, a concern that really the board, well, two things. Number one, the board didn't necessarily vote to even recommend it or actually do it. It was a discussion. The next question was, does the board actually have the authority to spend money on something like that? So then would it be the purview of the Board of Selectmen or the selectman himself, me, because I'm the purchasing authority for the town? Or, well, I said the next part of this was we started talking about a precedent that would be set, because there technically was at that point no application to go spend the money to do the measurement or it was something everybody wanted to know. But like, here we are now, what the P&Z has before them is a concept, right? A preliminary concept, which nobody is bound to at this point. And until they come back and do something with it, we really have no ability to go out there and spend money. It should be on the applicant to do it, right? Because that's the precedent we don't want to break. We don't want now to go out there and start spending money on things that the applicant should be doing.
Right.
And then when you look at the process, what should happen next is they should come back to P&Z with a full concept. It will make it or break it based on, whatever it is. If there is a question about an upland review and they haven't addressed it, then we have the duty to go in and do something about it, right? Because if there's a question, and Attorney Anders can correct me, if there's a question after the next application is done and the next site plan is finished, then if they haven't addressed it, then we may have to go in and do something, right? Because we might be then, to Nico's point, enforcing something. So it was kind of, as the Board of Selectmen looked at it, it wasn't a precedent we were willing to follow. We weren't ready to go spend the money on it. So both things. I mean, that's kind of where we came down, because there wasn't an actual vote. We kicked it back to the commission through staff. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
and these are separate things. You're talking about, we asked for flagging, and that's what the Board of Selectmen was talking about. And you're talking about getting an independent review of this application.
Right. So for that mechanism, okay, and I will refer to an appendix in this commission's regulations, okay?
Sometimes it's just a lot to rely solely on
No,
the professional opinion of one
Right.
person who's, but it's a catch-22 because they're paid, we understand that they're to be paid for by the developer, by the applicant, right? So how do we make sure that it's an unbiased assessment?
No.
And I have an issue
Right,
sometimes
so-
with this.
There is appendix E of your regulations. Indicates, or item 6, appendix E of your regulations. indicates what's called a special project review fee. Okay. In the past, if the applicant wants a peer review or a third-party review, whatever you want to call it, from the Northwest Conservation District or an expert of the commission's choosing.
If we wanted, the commission wants it.
And I quote, "The commission may impose on an applicant special project review fees where additional technical assistance is required to evaluate an application submitted in accordance with these regulations."
So it's on the app.
The need for such technical assistance will be based on a finding that the nature and intensity of the development may have one or more of the significant impacts as defined in section 2.2. Okay. When the commission accepted this application, they stated that there were no significant impacts. Okay. So that mechanism could not have come into play because you opted to say that there were no significant impacts. If you had said that, then you could have said, hey, this applicants, we think that it's necessary for us to have a third-party review as part of this application, and we want you to pay this fee to cover that. But that wasn't done in this case. So that's why you didn't have it. And now you know in the future that if you want that to apply, you know, you have to have the grounds for, you know, significant impacts, and you have to state that when you accept the application, or you should state that when you accept the
Which
application.
we didn't hear because it was about the 2x2 hole.
Correct.
As I recall. Okay.
Right.
Right.
So you're wanting the commission to explore all of these larger global impacts of water flow.
Not global. We're talking about 9 Putnam Park Road.
No, you're not. You're talking about
And-
all of the other surrounding properties.
The neighbors ate across.
Correct.
There's-
So I'm
they've
saying,
identified-
I
They
don't
came,
mean the
they came,
entire
they came,
flow.
they came
I
and
know, because it
testified
was
to
a
that.
public, I
So that's
know,
on
you're
public record.
interrupting me. You are wanting to explore the impact of the larger area and the hydrology, but that has to be connected for this discussion to the application in front of us, which is to fill that hole. That's why I was asking you whether that hole is an important environmental resource that we want to be throwing all of this at. I think what you're concerned about is the off-site wetlands and off-flow of water. And I think those are valid concerns, but they're not a part of this application.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think. Do you?
No, but I have the forum to discuss with the right people.
But it's not
and
appropriate to discuss all of those things if that's not the application that's in front of us.
We're having a discussion. This was open discussion.
Right. It is open.
We're not, the public
discussion.
hearing is closed for that.
Right. But it is an open discussion. But you are rendering a decision to the end of what the applicant has presented to you, i.e. the 2 by 2 foot depression at the bottom, or the 2 by 2 foot area of poorly drained soils, i.e. wetlands, at the bottom of that depression. That's what you're reviewing for this application.
Part of my interruption, however, this conversation is really becoming detrimental to the outcome of making a decision on the property. In my personal opinion, we're kind of beating a dead horse a little bit. And I know that this is the forum for us all to discuss, but I'm having some issues staying connected to it because I feel like it's becoming a unhelpful conversation to resolve the issue at hand. And I would like to see if there's anything that we could do for at least in this evening to table the discussion further on the topic to the next time we meet. That way we can compartmentalize our thoughts and maybe approach them in a more useful manner if there are any remaining concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here's a question that I will ask the members here tonight. Do you want staff, or do you want to direct staff to have a draft resolution or draft resolutions ready for the next meeting?
Kevin?
I would like to jump in and say, yes, I would. I would like a notation on that draft resolution to include, I don't know if it could be as a stipulation as much as a request to see their final proposal for the property, just for our own insight and peace of mind. Although given that proposal may not have any implications to wetlands, it will help us with the knowledge of all the discussions that we went at length tonight.
Is that appropriate?
I don't see why not, but the applicant may push back and say, well, if we're not proposing any regulated activities, what are you reviewing?
I thought the
That's why
applicant agreed
I
to
asked
it.
if we can make it as a request, not a demand. I don't know if that's it, if that's something that we could do. They offered it up this evening. I'd like to see it. By no means is it a necessity for my decision.
I believe Mr. Attorney Goldenberg had something to add.
The applicant agreed to it. So I don't think they would object if they said at the public hearing they would do it. So
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Thank you, Attorney Anders. Okay, so you would like to see us have a draft proposal prepared, and we will try minds to see what that proposal
Wait.
might state.
Let's be specific. A draft resolution of approval.
Right, I
Or
want
draft
to get to,
resolution
but
of
first I
denial.
want to see if we're ready for a draft proposal, and then I will get to what it will contain. No worries, no worries. We're on the same page. Would you like to come to the next meeting with Dave having prepared a draft resolution?
Yes, please.
Okay, I would also like that. So then we need to try minds. Kevin, would you be feeling in favor of approving the application or not?
Yeah, in all honesty, absolutely. For the issue at hand, most definitely.
Thank you. Nico, would you be in favor?
Yes, same.
Okay, I as well. So then is that a motion? Have you prepared?
No, it's just a consensus. So the commission has a consensus, or they have reached a consensus, for me to prepare a draft resolution of approval for consideration during the commission's next regular meeting on November 25th.
And please include the stipulation that we would like them to provide us with the final proposal that's going to the P&Z.
So noted, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other stipulations that you would like staff to include?
I do not have any. Nico, do you have any?
Stipulations for the filling of the 2x2, no.
Kevin, do you have any other stipulations on that approval, that draft approval?
I'm just personally thinking, would it be of benefit for us would it be of benefit for them to tell us how they're going to fill?
They did state it in the
They
comments
say on
tonight.
the record.
They stated it in the conversation. Should that be part of the draft resolution or not? It's not a necessity for me by any means. It's more of a question, and I would take Dave's insight on this as the answer.
Well, they have verbally indicated the material that they wish to use. If they end up deviating from that plan, with proposing some other material, that may prompt this commission revisiting the application for an amendment of some kind.
So
But-
it's a good suggestion. So
Okay,
can we
cool.
stipulation that they adhere to the proposed materials.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Perfect.
Any
Um,
other stipulations? Attorney?
Chuck Anders, I think, I agree with Dave about the condition of saying that when the fully developed site plan, they're proposing regulated activity, it shall be their, it's their obligation to submit an application and to, I mean, that sort of gets to the issue of whose job is it to provide for offsite wetlands. It may not be an issue, but it could be. So kind of put it on them to demonstrate that they're not proposing, when they do the full site plan, that it doesn't involve a regulated activity.
Is that already included in what? I'm not sure that I quite followed you, Attorney Anderson.
Sure. One of the issues is we don't know the site plan. What Attorney Trinkhouse said, look, we've changed the original one. We had our stormwater down at the 100 feet using even their gizmo that wasn't totally accurate. 100 feet only encompassed the broad part of the property, and we're not going to do that. We're not going to touch that area. And I think we need to say that if in fact you are proposing any activities on your property that are a regulated activity, i.e. within 100 feet of a wetlands or watercourse, then you're obligated to submit another application for that activity.
Automatically trigger, but I hear what you're saying. You're not sure that P&Z would automatically trigger that back to us if there were some proposed activity within that area.
They don't know. I mean, it sort of gets at the issue of whose job is it to measure the 100 feet. You heard Mr. Trinkhouse. He said, if it's off site, I don't have to do it.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about this.
Okay, so I think that sounds like I'd be in favor of that. I think that sounds like good counsel. So can we include that? Done. Dave's on it.
Okay, but I do want, this is
Correct.
what,
I'm in agreement as well, and I appreciate the input.
this is what I was concerned about too, Mr. Anders, was like, and it came up in our last meeting too. You know, the applicant was very, actively saying that it wasn't their responsibility to delineate an offsite wetland. And I know that this doesn't necessarily pertain to our discussion of this. It's about this application anyway. Whose responsibility is it, like you're saying, to do that? They were trying to put it on the town, and I was like, no, like, I don't care. As long as we identify and where the wetlands are, if they're within our 100-foot upland review area, as it stands right now in the regulations. It's usually the applicant.
If I may speak to this, for instances where a regulated wetland has extended off of an applicant's property, for all the times that staff has seen it up to this point, the applicant has not necessarily done a full delineation, but they have done some delineation.
Including this applicant?
Yes.
But only if it's on their property.
I apologize for interrupting. We're going off track again. I'd like to bring it back into the topic at hand, and I do apologize. I feel like I'm being an intermediator. Well, we could table this for next week discussions. I know that we've discussed this before, and we will discuss it again. But reiterating stuff that we discussed before at 10 o'clock at night is a little rough for me right now.
I'm gonna have Attorney Anderson and
I think Dave can
Carter
speak to this
discuss
because he's been
next time.
able, Dave can answer this question. Yes?
Right, that's the short answer to
Yes.
is yes.
Yes, what?
Yes.
Yes,
the applicant's job.
applicants have delineated offsite wetlands
Yeah.
for previous applicants.
So why was there even a question? Why were they giving us this runaround and causing all this undue stress? Why didn't they say, get permission from the neighbors? Like, isn't that normal matter of course? If you have a possible wetland, you're going to find out whether that's within your purview.
The reason they were giving
100 foot.
pushback tonight, I believe, is because it didn't pertain
Been
to the
happening for-
application.
since last month.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, bring it back, reel it back in, please. It did not belong to this application at hand.
Right. So
And no
I'm
inference to the application at hand.
right. And you're right. They were argumentative about it and they're wrong about their responsibility. And we've covered that. And if it comes up in the future, we know what our responses will be. But for this application tonight, again, with respect to Kevin and everyone else that's here, it doesn't pertain to our conversation about this application,
It pertains to every application.
but not
It's
this
far
one.
more important.
They're not proposing regulated activities within 100 feet of that offsite resource. They're proposing filling this hole on the site right now. And
Right.
yes,
There seems to be some discrepancy and issues with whether
It is-
the
they
developer
just
has
answered it.
no
It's their
incentive
responsibility.
to find a wetland off their property. They don't want to. They made it very clear it's not our concern, when in actual fact, it is their concern.
Yes, it
If they
is.
want to develop, they do need to find those wetlands.
yes.
If they're within 100 foot of their limited disturbance, and there should be no question about that. But there is all of this discussion and question about this. And that's right.
I think that is worth an offline discussion. I do not want to invalidate that concern, Mr. Jordan. I don't think any of the other.
This came up, this is why it came up to the first selection too.
So, yes.
It's this
Yes.
issue. I'm just pointing this out because we have Attorney Anderson in the room and Dan Carter in the room. If you all want to go to bed, I do too. I apologize for taking up your time, but I'm thankful for it. And I do think we need to discuss this whenever you want.
It's not that we don't want to discuss it. We're just trying to close out this topic for tonight. We have other items on the agenda to get to.
Is it worth just putting a cap or a cork, for lack of better words, in the discussion for this application and continuing it at the next meeting?
Well, let me ask that in a different way. The question that Nico is proposing can be attached to our discussion of this, which is what we've been doing, or it can be a broader topic when we're talking about our regulations and responsibilities and
Yes.
how those are written.
Yes,
So
yes.
can we, is it acceptable to you, Nico, for us to acknowledge that what you're talking about is a valid concern? It doesn't connect to what we're talking about tonight because this 2x2 area is not involved with that discussion, and we can talk about it in our larger conversation. Does that sound
That's
acceptable
fine.
to you?
Yeah, I just saw the right people in the room to talk about it, but if they don't want to talk about this now.
It's not that they don't want to
Let's
talk
go.
about it.
That's fine.
It's not that they don't want to talk about it, Nico. It's that.
You don't need to appease me. I'm okay. Let's go on. Move on with your agenda.
So does
I'm not trying to appease you.
does the commission want to table this discussion to continue it at the next meeting, now that they've given staff direction to draft a resolution of approval to discuss on the November 25th meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and just
Please.
so it's clear, this does not mean that the commission cannot continue discussions like this at the next meeting. Okay, you absolutely can do that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that this is a discussion I think that we should be having on a regular basis and parceled out so that way we can make our regulations better and become more efficient at doing our jobs. I just think that the time and the place to pursue it is not this moment.
Okay.
So yes, I agree.
Okay. So why don't you say for the record, Madam Chair, that we are going to continue this discussion now
need a
having
motion?
given staff to do that. Yes, you should have a motion.
So I would entertain a motion to table tonight's discussion on this application for 9 Putnam Park Road and continue it at our next meeting, which will be on November 25th.
Second.
Can I have a so moved?
So moved.
So moved, says Nico. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second is Kevin. Votes or discussion? None. Kevin? Voting?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, then we are moving along to the business meeting section of our agenda tonight. So we have 2 items.
Good night, everyone.
Oh yeah, we can let Dan and Attorney Andrews go.
Thank you so
Good
much.
night.
Okay.
I'm
so-
ex officio, so I'm going to stay in just a little while longer.
Oh,
absolutely.
excellent. No, thank you for your time, Dan.
Glad to have you.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have 2 items on the agenda. Those are approving our regular meeting minutes from 9:23 as well as 10:26, but we'll take them one at a time.
Yes.
And so I would entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from our meeting on 9:23.
I would like to make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes on 9/23.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, let's take a vote. Kevin?
Aye.
Nico?
Aye.
Danielle says aye. Motion carries. I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting. Oh, here he comes.
Minor plot twist. I do not have the special
That's
meeting
true.
minutes for October 26th ready. I thought I would, but I don't.
Okay.
So you'll have to table
That's
that.
okay because I don't think you can have that vote anyways because I was not there.
Oh,
Right.
right. So we don't even have enough people. So do we have to make a motion to table that
You should.
item? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to table the approval of the meeting minutes for 9:26 until our next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay, and
Aye.
any discussion? No. Okay, moving forward. Voting, Kevin?
Aye.
Nico?
Aye.
Danielle, aye. Okay, so motion carries. And we move on to staff report.
Okay, first I will get this out of the way while I have it in my head. 7 Rockwell Road, the Mark Bjorken appeal. We have no update at this time. And as I have continued to say and will continue to say until there is a change, I will let you know when that change takes place. And chances are Attorney Andrews will actually stick around for that portion of the meeting so he can provide you insight with how that all works. But right now, no news to report. For the items that I do have listed, the next Connecticut Association of the Conservation and Inland Wetlands Commissions is happening on November 16th. It is a Saturday. And I believe it is being held at a facility in Bristol. If you want to attend, what I would recommend is you fill out the CACUAC stuff, let me know, and give us your bill, your invoice. Pay it, obviously, because you won't have time between now and the 25th for us to approve payment before the meeting takes place. So what I would suggest is you pay it first, come back to us with the bill, and then we can make a motion under your education fees to pay whatever calculated admission fee you had to pay to attend that meeting. I strongly encourage you all to attend, even if you've been to one of these things before, if you've listened to one of the recordings. Always new, latest and greatest stuff from people like Janet Brooks, Mark Brandt, Mike Ziska, and all the experts across the state. Wonderful time. Highly recommend.
Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston.
Maybe. I don't know. You never know. Anyway. So that's that. Last but not least, I have for you is I approved an agent approval for the relocation of 4 99-gallon propane tanks and the installation of a 14-foot by 28-foot garage at 13 Settlers Road. If the commission is so interested, I can email them the plans that I reviewed, but it's all happening essentially within a previously disturbed area of the established lawn. They're not expanding anything. They're not getting any closer to wetlands. So that's why I decided to approve it administratively on your behalf. Any questions?
Nope, that's cool by me. I won't be able to attend the 16th, by the way. I'll be out of state. That's actually my birthday, so I'll be in Florida.
Okay. Well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
How
And
did
I
you
don't
find
have
out?
it.
How
I'm
did you
sorry.
find out about the Settlers Road thing?
They submitted an application to the zoning department,
Oh.
and because there's regulated wetlands and intermittent water course at the back of the property, it triggered me. So.
Okay.
I'm out there doing my thing. You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's all I've got for commission comments.
All right, I don't need to motion to close staff report, do it?
No.
Okay, so moving on to commission comments. This is where we are to review and discuss the inland wetlands regulations.
I think it may be worth not to interrupt the commission, but perhaps when it's not already 10:06 at night, it may be better served for the commission to discuss this on.
Yeah, we have some.
I think it'd also be very good to have Pat in on that discussion anyways, because he has such a lengthy time in this commission that he has a lot of information to offer as we have discussions like that.
It's an ongoing discussion, but we were going to start to make a run at it tonight, but
No.
as the hour is late, do we need a motion to table that and put it on our next meeting agenda?
Never hurts to have.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to table discussion of the inland wetlands regulations review and discussion until our next meeting on November 16th.
25th.
So, excuse me,
25th.
25th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Do I hear any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, public comments were closed. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make any comments for the commission tonight? Seeing no one in attendance here, Mr. Carter, you are, I suppose, member of the public. Do you have comments that you would like to add
He's
to
a
the
member of our
discussion tonight?
board.
For sure.
I'm actually a member of the board.
He's a member.
But great job. I know you guys did a
Excellent.
long night tonight.
We missed
Also,
you.
You're also a member of the public tonight, are you not?
I don't know how that works. I mean, as a member of the board, I usually have to follow the board. I
All
think.
right, never mind. You're not a member
Where
of the
have you
public,
been?
no
What's
comments.
your attendance rate?
Well, the good thing about ex officio is I don't count towards quorum. I don't have to be there, but I also don't get a vote. But
Okay.
I get to be addressed and talk with the board as if I were a member.
All the privileges.
That's
and
sweet.
none of
We're
the
glad to have you.
responsibilities.
All the
Really?
privileges and none of the responsibilities.
That's exactly what ex officio is. It's if you look at Robert's rules, it's the most brilliant thing ever.
100%.
So hearing no public comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission at 10:08 p.m. on October 28th.
So moved.
Second,
I second.
all in, discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. So moved. The meeting is adjourned. Amanda, thank you so much.